Council to order for Monday, April 22nd, 2024. Approve the agenda, please. Councilor Norbury.
That the April 22nd, 2024 budget meeting of council agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Noxana. All in favor? Carried. New business, Community Center Department cameras. Report dated April 22nd, 2024 from the Director of Community Services and Facilities regarding Community Center Department cameras. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. That council receives this report for discussion.
Seconder, Councilor Clickash. All in favor? Carried. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. Thank you, staff, for bringing this report back. The intention was to sort of look at this to see if there was still an opportunity to, ensure the the safety of our community with the cameras. But looking at it, the cameras is quite the largest expense. So for myself, I think this is something that we could probably push off till next year. So that would be my thoughts. Thanks.
Okay. Any more discussion? Councillor Julik and then Councillor Noxana.
I actually would like to still continue with the cameras. I don't think we have enough cameras in our community as a whole. And just for the safety and staff and kids out there, I shouldn't say the safety of, because we already have safety stuff in place. I think it's a necessary expense.
Thank you. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I'm just inquiring if the cell phone booster would work just in the upstairs offices, or would that be for the entire building? And does it also extend Wi-Fi or just cell signal?
Ms. Torval.
Thank you. I will ask Mr. Bento if he can answer that. Bento?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so the purpose of the booster is to improve the signal of the reception area. That's where we have issues. Other parts of the building, it's okay. So the purpose is to have more or a better signal at the reception area for the work cell phones.
Thank you. Follow up.
So not the entire building and not for Wi-Fi signal, just cell reception?
Correct. Yeah. So my understanding, I'm going to go back to staff here in a minute. My understanding is we have some boosters in certain places within the community center, whether that's down below. Again, I didn't walk through to find out where they're at, so, I've seen them. They've been approved previously to be installed, and that was to help out, obviously, cell phone service, but also the Wi-Fi capability throughout the building. Sounds like to me from staff is there's a issue at the reception with a dead zone or whatever, so they figured with a booster in that area will assist them being able to get cellular service. It's different if you all have the same phone. I think iPhones are pretty easy if you can use Wi-Fi to call, as long as both of you have Apple, I believe. Can't remember what they call it. Okay. Councilor Noxana.
My understanding is any model of phone works with Wi-Fi calling, because my parents use it quite frequently and they don't have iPhones and are able to call any of us.
Okay. Ms. Torval, if we could just get some clarity there. I know there was a question and I don't want to speak on staff side, just in regards to that, but I know there is other Wi-Fi boosters and cellular boosters. I believe down and around the arena there were some issues, so there were some installed there previously. I'm just going to follow up.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bento?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, the purpose of the booster is only for the cell phone signal. If there is concern for the Wi-Fi as well, we can look into that.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. Since I don't see any other lights, I'm going to put forward a recommendation that council postpone the camera installation and cell phone booster until the 2025 budget.
Okay. Seconder, Councilor Noxana. Discussion, Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. The reason why I put this off is that, personally looking at budget, I have a number in mind that I'd like to see our increase reduced down to, and I'd rather see capital projects get pushed off till next year versus us having to look at people. So that's my rationale behind it. We do still have cameras in the community center. We still can see what's going on. We still have people in the community center. Cell phones, we can step outside. Like I'm aware, like I'm in the gym, you know, there's not great service down there. You just step outside if you need to. So at this point in time, I'm in favor of postponing. Thank you.
So just before I go to Councillor Julick, and I apologize, I probably should have started the meeting off with this, and, you know, if council would allow this, it's really not in regards to the motion on the floor, but the very last sheet of our agenda, it says focus municipal tax rate comparison. So I reached out to staff last week after our budget meeting, realizing how we were going, you know, trying to see where we could trim. If we look at the assessed value for 2024, and then you see what the approximate increase is, and that's at the 13.5% that was put in front of us in regards to all the things that we added into our budget. Now, this increase does not include the water tax or the sewer tax. I have those numbers available as well that would increase. And then obviously there's PRD and stuff, but the 13.5% that we're talking about in regard to the residential increase for the 1.3 million that we're shortfall in the deficit, that's the average increase. So an assessed value without a garage, single home, increases about 125.90. If you look at one with a garage with an estimated assessment value of 225, the increase is at 164.70. If you look at another one without a garage, it's 233,300 is the assessed value. That works out to be 170.78. And then if you look at, we asked to include businesses as well, just so we had an idea. If you look at the last one's estimated assessment is at 650,000. The increase for that location would be $1,205.49. That is with the budget at a deficit of 1.3 million. Whatever it is, a few and some change. That's the 13.5% increase. So I just want council to be aware that, you know, it's you see a 13.5% increase. Don't take me wrong. I was like, wow. You know, so, you know, that's why I reached out to staff. I'm like, what does that actually look like? And no disrespect, I think, you know, I may have asked the wrong question to staff and then took it, and maybe we didn't get the full thing that it was by per thousand, then it was per 100,000. So after you get a break after the meeting and realize that the increase is like less than $200 for a 13.5% increase. I did reach out to Taylor and Fort St. John. Taylor, I don't want to say this year, but averagely residential tax there is $3,000 a household. Fort St. John, just under $4,000. So when you see a 13.5% increase for a community somewhere like that, would be like, holy. But to me, when you look at our taxes and the 13.5% increase, which I did believe, I did say I'd be comfortable with the 6.57 as my high. But when we actually see what the average increase is, I think it might be a good discussion to be had. And I understand it doesn't really have to do with the motion. Probably should have started off at the meeting, I feared, because we would wait to remove some of this stuff after we got through the reports. But since it came up, I thought I needed to mention that. So I got Councillor Julick and then Councillor Noberry.
So my question was to go to some of this as well. So after looking at the package and stuff today, I was wanting to be refreshed as to how, if I could be reminded, if we wanted to take this from our unreserved funds, what does that look like? Like if we wanted to make it up so that we only did the increase for 6.5%, let's say, because that was the average, what does that look like if we want to take the shortage from the unreserved funds?
Okay, I'll get an answer to that after. I apologize, and I appreciate council allowing me to go on a bit. I didn't take anything we went out of the budget at any point, especially when it's in our agenda, but I should have started the meeting off that, so that's why I did it that way. So I will come back. I'm just going to go to Councillor Noberry, then Councillor Hoffman, then I have an idea.
Okay.
Councillor Noberry.
Would it make sense? I'll pose that we defer the motion.
Thank you.
Just so that we can get in a good discussion. I brought it up because no one else was speaking,
Yeah.
and you know, maybe it's time to start having a discussion, like a pointed discussion. So I'll make a motion to defer.
Okay, seconder, I'll second that. That was my idea. So I appreciate that. So any discussion on the deferral? Councillor Hoffman?
No, not
Okay. Yeah, I totally support the deferral. I think this is an opportunity to have this discussion and then have some of the conversation that Councillor Julick brought up, so I'll support the motion. And we're going to defer this until later in the agenda. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Sorry, I'm just going to grab my sheet so I can write beside it. Ms. Torval, if we may, just ask about the question that Councillor Julick had asked first about, and that was about directing some of our unreserved funds that we have into lowering the 13.5% increase. What does that look like?
Thank you, Council. Just for clarification, is that the operational surplus funds that you're referring to?
Yeah, like I guess what I was looking at was when we got the information from Mr. McPhail, from 2022, we had 17,500,000 in reserved and 20,365 in unreserved. So I assume that that's where it would come from.
Okay, the operational surplus, okay. Mr. McPhail?
Yes, yes, you can do that. There is, I wouldn't say that's normal per se. I would say that if you're going to do that, it's a good idea to have an idea of what you're going to be doing that in the future, because you're sort of delaying the pain, but you could do that for certain capital, for your capital proposals that we have. Because if you look at the next 2 years, even after this year, you still have big increases. You've got a 5 to 6% increase in the next 2 years after this one. So there's 3 years of pain. But you do have, your reserves are very strong. So it's, I think it'd be a good idea to look at the long-term use of your reserves.
Follow-up, Councillor Julick.
So the reason I was looking was because this is the year that we're hitting the most pain due to the collective agreement increases. It's at 1.1 million, which is where our deficit is. So for me, that's why I looked at using our reserves this year, just so we don't have a huge increase this year. And then we still have to maintain it and then do a big increase next year as well. Like if we're looking at 6.5% and we're keeping the status quo, then we're going to do 13.5 this year, and then we're going to do 6.5 next. So I thought, well, if the difference, if I'm looking at the paperwork here correctly, we're still at 1.1 million as of our last meeting where we ended with the I'm looking at the Schedule 2 that was in our package. And so for me, I thought the 1.1 basically takes care of that collective agreement. And so that's why I came up with that number. And I'm comfortable using that this year and knowing that next year we need to be quite diligent on our capital and that kind of thing. And I feel like we'll have more time next year because we're going to get started a bit sooner with any luck.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Julick, for starting on that path. I did not have a good time last budget meeting, so spent a lot of time since then thinking about what the consequences are for what we choose to do. And I came to a very unpopular conclusion. I think we need a larger hit this year, one way or another. As you said, we have the QP 6.5 coming next year, and the only thing that I disagreed with what you said is if we take it out of reserves to pay 1.1, it'll be that amount plus 6.5 next year. We're still having to pay the wages of the increase. It may not be exactly because some of it was back pay, but it'll still be a very large chunk. And looking at the surrounding area, we're low. We're just low on our taxes. And fortunately, we have some businesses to help us keep the residential tax rates low. But every year we defer is another year we're going to have to make up. And I was real happy last year to keep it in that 6.5 range or 6.87, whatever exactly it was. Sorry, I don't have the number off the top of my head. But it was in that range compared to everybody else being 11, 12, and 13 in the area. I would like to keep the town's niceness going, and I think every year that we're trying to keep it below a certain number, we're going to lose that. And I forgot to start with it. I appreciate staff getting this stuff back to us in a week. Like I know there's lots of information in these reports, and I think it's all really important. And the one that got me to where I am is that it's not summer make work projects for young people. There's a lot of work that needs to get done to keep it clean, and I especially want to keep the trees and brush area as clean as we can and as upkept as we can. So I came here today with the let's not defer. Let's take our hit this year, and then next year we don't have to do another double-digit hit. Because I think if we're going to force it down to 6.5 this year, there's not going to be any way to get it back below 10 this year. That's just looking at the numbers, what my conclusion was today. So I'm going to stop now because I know we don't have anything in particular, but that's where I am today.
Yeah, and actually, like, again, I'm going to make a comment. We talk about when we talk 13.5% increase, it sounds like, oh, geez, that's a big number. But when you actually see some of the equivalent numbers in front of us in a sheet that staff has provided, I mean, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have sewer and water on there that were increases that we approved in December. But those increases are 2024, we'll see a 11% increase for water, which with a 25.43 cents increase, homeowners will see a 6.5% increase to sewer rate, charges resulting in $9.11. So when we talk about that and we see that we have a deficit of 1.3 million and 13.5% increase, and we're talking, on most average homes, I mean, maybe there's more higher assessed homes out there, but the highest one I have on a sheet in front of me is $233,300. And that's $170.78 at 13.5% increase, leaving the budget that was submitted. Like, I understand where Councillor Julia talks about taking out of reserves. I have issues with that. I mean, previous councils have always made sure those reserves were built and always contributed to for when we have to do big things, whether that's asphalt, water lines, sewer lines, anything under the infrastructure and under our roads. And I think it's very, very, like, my thoughts are it's very important to continue that process, because to me, we're all of our infrastructure is exactly the same age throughout the whole community. And that's a concern. If we have a fault, it's going to be, hopefully not the whole community at once, but it's going to be a major construction for certain areas. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. So, like, my perspective on the whole tax rate thing is, yeah, people kind of they'll kind of cherry pick what number they want to choose from, right? Like, they'll find that big number, 13%, and then that's what they focus on. I think about the rising costs of living today. It costs more to do everything. It costs more to fuel our vehicle. It costs more to buy whatever. So I think it's our responsibility to do what we can to keep additional costs for our residents low, keep our service levels to a point where what they are willing to pay for. Like, that's the key, not what we can give, but what they want to pay for, right? If we start raising business taxes, we know that just trickles down. Like, that just trickles down into the cost of goods. Now, my concern if that happens, and maybe I'm being a little alarmist, I apologize, but the costs go up in town, Amazon's right there. And I don't want that to happen. I want to keep our community cost effective for residents, for businesses, for everybody. So I think we really need to do all that we can to reduce our taxes to a reasonable level. I had a number in my mind. I had 6.5 in my mind. Maybe, I need to soften that a little bit. But at the same time, I think we got to have some tough discussions about how we can bring that down. Councillor Julik brings up a good point, similar to what I was talking about last week about utilizing reserves for capital. We have some wage increases. Why don't we use last year's wage increases from our last year's revenue? That would be my thought, right? And that's the way I can rationalize it in my brain. Yeah, I'm definitely open to utilizing reserves for something. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Julik.
I think that it's important to keep in mind our infrastructure and such, and I hear Mr. McPhail's caution about, not just wanting to reach to reserves when we get to a point where we just can't balance a budget. I think I'm on the same page with Councillor Norbury. It costs so much to do a lot of anything, and while some people can look at $170 for the year, and it's going to be more than that because of the sewer and water. Now, I don't remember if it was $9 a month for sewer and water that the increase was going to be, or if it was 9 over 12 months. Do you know?
It's one amount. 6
So
points,
just-
yeah.
So $10 basically for the year. So, you know, so let's say it's $150 or it's $200. That might make the difference for a family if they're going to put somebody in skating, if they're going to put somebody in hockey, if you're going to make that one trip out of town this year. It doesn't seem like a lot until it is. And I can say that from experience. It doesn't seem like a lot over the full year of things, but maybe that if somebody's living on a shoestring right now, or I just think it's not up to us to decide what that amount, like to me 13.5% is a big percentage. I think it's just too high. And I appreciate that the previous councils have done what they can to keep that reserve healthy. And ultimately, though, it's taxpayer money that's made that reserve. And so at what point how much is enough of a reserve? Like, I think that those are some of the things that we need to sit down as a council and make some decisions on when we look at budget. What kind of a reserve do we want to have? What does that look like in order to keep our taxes down? When we're giving grant and aid and fee-for-service contracts, what number does that need to look like? We do the rest with the other things, like, so we talk about, okay, well, if paving needs to be done, we have an asphalt reserve already built into our budget. So that's why it's not coming out when we look at the capital costs. We have the PRA, which may or may not come or go, but I mean, that's a lot of those funds. So when we look at our capital stuff, a lot of stuff has already been put through there. So I think while I understand what Councillor Hoffman is saying around, we're going to have to take the hit sometime, I think that this is not the year. I think that next year we make sure that we start this process a lot sooner so that we can have the conversations about where are some areas that we need to have more consistencies and more percentages so we don't get to this point. And this year, use the reserves for what people generally put reserves for, which is still our taxpayers' money. And I think we all kind of agreed on the 6.5%. That was kind of a fairly, and it doesn't have to go there. Like, we don't have to do that at 5:22 of our meeting. But I think that I'm not happy with 13.5%, and I won't be voting in favor for that.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay, this isn't complete. We'll just go back to the deferral. I just wanted to make sure we had that conversation so as we go through this process at the end, we can have some open debate about it. Okay, 4.1. Motion that was deferred was to remove the cameras and cell boosters within the community center. Discussion. Councillor Hoffman, then Councillor Noxana.
Thank you, Mayor. I cannot support this motion because this cost isn't going away. We defer it to next year, we save the taxes this year, and then we add it to next year and add the taxes next year. I think we had the discussion pretty in depth when we were doing looking at these operational things. And I don't know, I think with the current state of what the cameras are and having multiple different types of cameras, I think the system upgrade is needed. And I don't think the costs are going away next year. If anything, they're going to go up. So I'm not in favor of deferring this.
Thank you. Councillor Noxana, then Councillor Julik.
Thank you. I'm in favor of the motion on the floor. I think that, like we discussed, 13.5% is too high of a tax increase. Anything we can push off to next year can be, and we hopefully start the budget process earlier and look for other revenue streams like grants or things. Maybe our PRA can cover some of this next year, but it's something that was fairly low priority, so I'm absolutely happy to support.
Thank you. Councillor Julik.
Yeah, and I'm going to be voting against it. The biggest reason for me is I recall a certain incident that happened in our arena this summer, or this past winter, and if it hadn't have been taped by a cell phone camera, we may not have had the information that we needed in order to follow up with the RCMP and have some consequences for a parent. For me, it has to do with the safety of staff. And the children, in the fact that if something happens, safety seems like, I'll borrow Councillor Norbury's alarmist, that's not the word. It's about supporting the staff when we've shown that we have had disruption in the community center. If we can have that stuff on camera, then when we have parents who are disbelieving, or if somebody's hurt, then we've got that stuff captured on camera. The cell phone booster, I remember our last conversation, it was for the safety of the staff because they don't always have two-way stuff. So the cell phone thing was an issue with staff being able to get back to the folks that can help them out if they're in a position of needing to be helped. So for me, I think that this needs to go through. I only see these things increasing in costs. So I'm in favor of keeping it, so I won't be supporting the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. You're looking at our list. This is 38 of 50. Like, this is a medium priority, and even on the medium list, it's still near the bottom. Like, it's barely above the lower priority. So, I think this is an easy hanging fruit. Maybe we can get by with just adding, a couple of smaller, like 3-4 cameras versus 42 that's listed in the report. There still is cameras. Like, it's not that we're going from 0 to 42. Like, there still is cameras. We have opportunities, other ways to fundraise for this. Maybe put off to next year, but maybe we have room in our CRA funding, PRA funding. Yeah, just looking at our budget now. If we want to get lower, if we don't start taking some of these capital projects, we start losing staff money. That's what I don't want to see. So that's why I support the motion.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Make a couple of comments. I think you guys have all made some very valuable points. My thought is just a couple of things. One, I believe staff will always look for grants if grants are there. That's part of their preview to do is look for whatever they can assist themselves in regards to stuff that, whether it's in capital or operational, if we can get some funding to offset the cost to the taxpayer. I believe they do a great job. The other thing I'll mention is, I understand it's a yellow. I know Councilor Norbury mentioned, well, it's at the bottom of the list. I don't think they picked it in order. I could be wrong. I'm going to ask that question because I look at it and I think it's just as a discussion happens around the staff table or the senior meetings on stuff what they've brought forward as capital asks, it gets added in. I could be wrong, but I'll ask that question before I'm done. My concern is obviously I read the report. Cell phone boosters is a concern if we expect staff to be able to answer their phone when a taxpayer calls, whether that's over the community center or they're asking questions about programs and nobody can dialogue back to that taxpayer or that resident. Let's use resident, I think better option. Now, when it comes to cameras, I think, to me, we've asked staff and staff brought it forward. We've all put say into the new policy over at the community center for harassment and bullying and all that. And to me, I think this is, some of that goes on comes into the budget is, they see that we put a new policy in, they realize maybe there's some issues that maybe things aren't being captured properly. So, hey, if we're going to really make this policy strong, we need to be able to capture certain things, and we're not quite capturing it. So I think when you look at old technology compared to new technology, whether it's clear, you can zoom in nowadays, whatever it may be that staff has looked at, I can't support the motion. I think that's, we talk about that we want safety and accessible buildings for all. I think we have to have a way to be able to, one, use it to help enforce the policy that was brought forward by staff and council supported. But it's that tool. It's that tool to be able to use for that, in my thoughts. That's why at this point, I think it's got to be, I feel I won't support it. I think it needs to be left in, and I understand we're trying to get down to a number. We don't want to cut, I know you mentioned it, whether it's certain services or whatever to lower that number. But again, I think certain things when it comes to that option, I guess I won't say, just to be able to help enforce our policy. I think it's a good tool to use. And when we talk about cell phone boosters, and I was unaware that there was huge concerns up at the desk for them to be able to receive calls. But I mean, to me, I think it's probably important when if whether it's staff contacting staff or management trying to contact management, and they can't talk to each other, we're delaying that service of workload. So at that point, I won't be able to support it. Any more discussion? Council Nobre.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak if they don't. Valid points. I think you swayed me. Yeah, I think good comments. You know, we've put it to staff to try and make our community center a safer place for all of our youth and residents that utilize it. Yep. I think you swayed me. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I did say I was going to go back to staff, so I didn't want to go right away. But if staff can just fill it in, I don't want to be wrong. So if that is correct, the way some certain capital items were picked or whatever, I mean, I think that's good information to have because maybe it'll be swayed back the other way. But is that how it went? Is like to me when we say that the cameras and cell phone boosters are line 38, they're in yellow. They're 4 from the bottom. So they're not, you know, the ones above it in yellow are more important, or is it just they're yellow and this is why, and everybody put them in where they could? Mr. Orville?
They're just, sorry, they're yellow. I will ask Mr. Curry, he led the team with the grading on the ranking on the items, so Mr. Curry can tell you how it was done.
Thank you, Ms. Torville. Mayor and council, good evening. So to the mayor's question, capital and special projects were listed in order from priority from highest to lowest. So 38 is less important than 37 and so forth. We use the grading scale for things like, is it contained within an asset management plan? Is there any liability to the municipality should this project not proceed? What is the impact to our operational reputation and the like as our grading criteria? And it wasn't done just by one, it was done by the team of the directors.
Thank you for that. Councillor Knox-Center.
Thank you. I was going to point out too that there is a rank scale just to the right of the, I don't know what category that is, the project description. Councillor Norbury did point out that we do have cameras in the building already. I'm still in favor of the motion on the floor because it is a big cost, and I do think it's something that's ranked fairly low in our general priorities. There's nothing in the community center. It's just replacing what we have and maybe adding cameras, I believe was the note. And our staff isn't being left with no way to communicate. We do have office phones, I believe, in every office. There's handheld radios, there's Wi-Fi calling, there's texting. There's so many other opportunities that we can use to not spend, like the price tag of this is see if it's in purple, $64,000, sorry, $64,000 for the total project, which I agree, we should look at replacing them, but I don't think that we can afford this year.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more discussion? Yeah, you know, Councillor Knox-Center, you bring up a good point, cost. Well, just so you know, cost is going to go up again next year on this. So, you know, I have some background in this, and I'll say mine went up $15,000 compared to year over year. Compared to last year being estimated and quoted, mine went up 15 grand in 2024. So it could be 30 grand more in 2025. That's my concern. I understand it, and you know, I try not to bring some of my background into a council meeting debate when it comes to budgets. But to me, I looked at it. To me, I understand where you're coming from. I understand we can text and stuff like that. I don't know what our policy is on that. When it comes to staff texting each other and stuff, I think that might be a concern, but maybe that's how they do communicate. I don't know. But to me, I understand we have office phones, but it's when they, you know, maybe they're not near their office phone and a resident's calling. I think that's a huge concern, I guess. I'm sorry, I don't work in the community center. I'm just reading the report. It's been put in front of me. I've read it depthly. I read it a couple times over just to get all that, make sure I was clear on it. But I understand it, and we all have our, you know, we'll all go our own way. So, any more discussion? Okay, motion on the floor is to remove the cameras and cell phone booster out of the capital, the community center. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Opposed is Councillor Dussault, Councillor Clickash, Councillor Julick, Councillor Hoffman, Councillor Norbury, and Mayor Kirkcalkin. The motion is defeated. Okay. Any more discussion in regards to the community center department cameras and complex? Okay. Okay, moving on to 4.2. Costs of summer camp at the community center, report dated April 22nd, 2024, from the manager of recreation regarding cost of the summer camp at the community center. Recommendation, Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. The council receives this report for discussion.
Seconder, Councillor Dussault. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. So I have a lot of notes on this report. Childcare and tumbler age is something I'm obviously very passionate about, but would you like me to go through them?
Floor is yours.
Okay. So later on in our report, we hear that, or we read that snack is provided for every child, every day. The materials and supplies for this camp is $1,500. So I'm just wondering if food and cleaning supplies are in that $1,500 to run camp for the entire summer.
Ms. Torval.
Mr. Bento, can you give us the details of that, please?
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so the materials and supplies includes the snacks, the cleaning, and the craft materials for the activities.
Thank you for that. Councillor Noxena.
Sorry, making a note.
No problem.
Okay, so the next point is we offer this program for free. And I know that like it says here, that charging a fee might lead to competition with another business, but we're charging $0. And that is creating competition with another business here in town. So I think that if we were to continue offering this camp, we should discuss charging a fee that is similar to what the business in town is charging. And I'm not sure if that's something that we pick or we send back to staff to discuss, but offering something for free is always going to be a competition for someone trying to do it for a profit. The YMCA is offering a summer camp in their building for $10 a day program, so $50 a week this summer. If they were to expand out of those 12 kids, I believe they have 10 to 12 kids per week signed up already. They can expand into the elementary school room that they have a contract for, but they do have to charge a bit more to run out of that location. But they can take 24 students. So I'm gonna let someone else talk because we are in direct competition with this program.
Okay. And I just want to give council some clarity because this wasn't something that, and no disrespect to staff, this wasn't something that staff came up with. This was a clear direction from a previous council. We realized, and I'm not saying that previously the other organization didn't offer it. I can't say for sure. Previous council thought that there was an opportunity, something for our children, and it was brought forward and supported by the council of the day. And to be honest, I think council, we realized it was going to be free. We threw out ideas I sat on that council. We threw out ideas of things that, maybe we seen back when we were children, which was many years ago. But I looked at it like the Boys and Girls Club. That was a big thing back in the community I lived in. So they did things. And it was drop-in, obviously, right? So it was totally different back then. It was drop-in. They had little huts set up at playgrounds. You just drop in. It wasn't that you were there all day, you moved on or whatever. So when staff came forward with this, I think that's why you've seen it as free. So I just want to make sure it's clear. It wasn't staff that built this program, said, here it is, it's free, this is something that we want to do. It was direction from us, from the previous council. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. And I just I'll come to you in a minute. Just want to make sure that council is aware of that it was clear direction from the previous council. Does not mean that this council can't say, hey, maybe we need to look at it a different way, and whether it's like We Love Kids Day that is thrown by the community center or not, but there is other options out there. Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. I am in no way blaming staff for this program. I recognize that it was the council of the day who chose to put it in place and offered it for free with no communication to the Tumbler Ridge Children's Center Society at the time. And there was a huge impact at that time. Huge. It meant shuttering of programs. But we have now, this council that's sitting here today, asked the YMCA to expand their out-of-school aged care. So we as a council sitting here have to decide what we will do to ensure that they can remain viable doing this. And that's not being in direct competition with them.
No, appreciate that. Councillor Gillick.
So I thought that the report that came to us was fairly comprehensive, and I appreciated the information. So I guess my questions would be, what I understand right now is that the YMCA has accommodated all the spaces that they have. So then what does that look like for the rest of the kids in the community? And so I'm seeing Councillor Loxana shake her head, so I'm looking for information. If I'm reading this report correctly, what I'm seeing is that they filled the spaces that they have for this summer. I also read that they are closed, YMCA is closed for 2 consecutive weeks, so then there would be 2 weeks where there would be no care available. And because I understand where you're talking about, I run into this in my own business with things being offered free of charge in our community when I charge for them. And so it feels personal, even though that I know that it's not. So I absolutely understand where Councillor Noxana is coming from. So if those things are not true, I would just like to hear about that.
Councillor Noxana?
Thank you. I did have a discussion with people in the community. This program is not full. They are able to take 12 children, and they have a few weeks that are full, but not all of them are full yet. And they do have the ability to open a second program with 24 children, but the government won't subsidize that. So they do have to charge full fees for that. It's not $50 a week, it's $180 a week. So some weeks are full, not all of them. But the ones that are full, they could still expand it to another location, but not charge 50 a day, or 50 a week.
Okay, Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. So, I do have direct knowledge of the Play Escape program. It's a great program. A lot of kids utilize it. A lot of families utilize it. But for my thoughts on the matter is that we do have an organization that offers this program. We are in conflict with them. I just think we need to have room for everyone to operate. I don't think that we should remove the Play Escape program. I think we should modify it to allow to ensure that everybody has room to be right after at our child care task force meeting, after hearing from Ms. Fleming about the concerns about their summer program and looking at the previous years, like last year the summer program had 1 child. So that's however many employees at their center they couldn't operate with. Like, is that funding required for them? Also, speculation is hard to really comment on, but after speaking about that, I really felt that we need to look at this program and reduce it as much as we can so we can give them space. But after that discussion, I had other residents come chat with me about even at $50 a week, they can't afford that for their families. So we definitely don't want to remove this quality program for families, but we need to make sure that it's being utilized properly and not taken away from others. So like my thoughts is I think we could potentially see a reduction here just so that we can allow room for everybody to operate. Because having 40 kids, that's a lot of kids, and once people hear it's free, I'd be concerned that they would start taking their kids out of the YMCA. Thanks.
Thank you. I got Councillor Noxana and then Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you. I recognize I'm speaking a lot to this. Through the provincial government, if you qualify, you can get a subsidy up to full tuition cost with a licensed program. So I feel like costs might be prohibitive for some families. If they were to go through licensed care, there is an avenue there for them to have fully qualified care up to free of charge that our provincial government pays for anyway. So why take this on as taxpayers? Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman and Councillor Julik.
Thank you, Mayor. I just don't think we have the time for a solution this year for this issue. I think that they don't have to compete directly. You can have different hours of operation, different coverage, different availability, and those discussions will be very valuable over having these programs. But with 2 weeks of inactivity, period, and I think we have a general position that we want more activities for youth, I'm not comfortable taking away from the 40 slots that are currently available. I'll be blunt, my youngest has availed themselves of this program the last few years, and it's not like she wants to go every day or every week, but you might use it once, twice, 3 times, who knows? And maybe there are parents that really do need daycare, that they need the coverage from before they go to work till after they're done, which is, this program would not work for them in that case. So I think we do need the conversation, but for right now, I would rather not reduce the number of spots. And the other thing, if there's provincial money for this, I would be more than happy to set it up something that information-wise that parents know in advance that they can approach that, and we can help the YMC that way. But it's a great program. It gives the kids something to do for hours all the way through the summer, and without a replacement, I'm not comfortable cutting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Julich.
Oh, it's a tough one. I'm going to say that I think this has been happening. This would be about the fourth year that we've had this program run, maybe a little bit longer, for free. So I understand that it would be difficult, and I think that there's 2 really important sides to it. We have, families with 3 and 4 kids, so the YMCA program is just not affordable for them unless they do get the money, and there's no guarantee that they will. And then the ability to make sure that they're able to do the paperwork. Is that our responsibility? I don't know. The other side is we talk a lot about recruitment, and for me, for sure, retention of workers. And if we aren't able to keep our programs working, I don't know what that looks like. What I do know, or what I'm understanding, is our program through the district, maybe that, there's just so many different pieces to it. So I feel like there's not an easy yes or no to this. Possibly our program allows for somebody to get some training, which would then allow them to have a spot at the YMCA. I just think that there's trickle down. I appreciate the information from Councillor Noxana about, that the 12 kids are there, but they're not registered for every week of the summer yet. And then the 2 weeks, I don't know what that looks like. I would imagine then maybe they could accommodate during the 2 weeks that they're closed down if they had more kids. I don't know. When I look at this, for the $40,000, I'd be more willing to support the $40,000 here than I would be for the $15,000 for the snowmobile thing that we approved. So, I don't know. It's a tough one. I hope to hear more so I can make a hard decision.
Thank you. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I think the solution I would be comfortable with, because I see this as a valuable program. There's a lot of kids that utilize it. We can't continue to offer it for free. I think that whether we send it back to staff to find out a cost recoup that is not competing with the YMCA, or we do some hard math ourselves to decide what that looks like, knowing that the YMCA charges between $50 and $180 per week for school-age children, there has to be some sort of equal comparison there, some sort of equal financial burden, I think, to parents. And when we advertise that we are charging a fee for this program this summer, we can absolutely help the YMCA promote that they are eligible for the provincial subsidy for families who can't afford it. And I know their staff is more than willing to fill out paperwork with parents who need that subsidy, and they have been for many years. So what that number looks like, I have no idea, but I think the best solution for our community is a fee for this program.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman and myself.
Well, I didn't think we'd solve it now. I'd rather just give the YMCA $50 per kid to run it during the summer to balance that out than charge. I think there's a lot of families where the 2 or 3 or 4 kids with the $100 or $200 a week that it ends up costing them are not going to avail themselves of this. And to me, for this program, the point was something to do during the summer months for the kids that are eligible in that age group, instead of just running around. So I don't know what that looks like, and I don't want to send it back to staff this year. We just don't have, I think we have less than 2 weeks right now before we need to finish this up. And I really do think that something can be worked out. But right now, we've got 100 and something elementary school aged kids, and I want something for them. I think it's one of the great things that this town does is these sorts of things for the kids during the summertime. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Good points. I mean, obviously, a couple councillors have a bit more background or knowledge there, and I mean, and we appreciate that. It definitely helps the debate. Maybe council needs to think of it like a hybrid summer camp. You know, maybe it's not a full day, maybe it's not all day. You know, maybe it's still free. It doesn't have to be charged for because it's hybrid. And you know, I'll be honest, I think back when this went through, I thought it was going a different way than it went, and that's fine. You know, we gave direction and probably clear direction on what to do. I just had a different opinion. So me, I thought the same thing. I'm not saying we would start building, so please, staff, don't go start building these little huts, but that was my understanding. It's like, you know, these leaders would show up at whatever playground today, maybe it's pre-advertised, children and youth from the area would come and join. Maybe people would walk up from below to the middle bench up top, and they would meet these leaders there, and they would do a parachute game, whatever it all is. I think when it comes to what I see in front of us from staff, and I appreciate the report, it's very thorough. I'll be honest, I never once thought about having staff reach out to the YMCA to see what their numbers were and stuff, and it's been added to the report, so I appreciate that. But maybe there's a way of doing a hybrid summer camp. I mean, I don't want to put staff on the position. I understand there's 2 weeks. There's, you know, whatever we're leading into. I mean, that's wouldn't be the first time we waited until the last hour or the last minute to approve a budget. But maybe that's something that we need to have a look at. Maybe staff needs to, you know, send it back to staff, have a look at it. To me, it could still be free. I understand, you know, from a couple councils that, you know, we're competing and such. I think it's a little bit different. Not saying it is. But maybe we can do a hybrid system where we're looking for, you know, instead of what's in front of us as a budget, maybe they can look at it and it decreases. It doesn't mean that those leaders or the people they use wouldn't help elsewhere when they're not doing these. I don't know. And maybe we're on the last hour and it's not the right year to look at a hybrid, and the hybrid system is better for next year when we have some time to work on it. I'm okay with those thoughts too, but just thought I'd throw it out there, especially for the two councils that sit on the task force, because I think there's some more involvement from your sides. You're having those one-on-ones or a group discussion that, you know, we don't all sit there. So I, you know, like to hear back from the two of you if we can. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. You know, it's unfortunate timing because the head of the YMCA for our region is away. So, you know, when I suggested they come in to chat with council, you know, it's unfortunate that timelines don't match up. You know, I'll comment on what you're saying about the inception of this idea. I remember sitting in the gallery when this was discussed, and that's very similar. At that time and previous times, it was subsidized through grants. That's the big thing that's sticking for me, right? Some people thought Kanuma was paying for this camp. Some people thought it was Summer Jobs was paying for this camp. Now it's being fully funded by taxation. You know, when... You know, I don't want to repeat myself, but you know, when we use residents' money to offer a service that is 90% similar to what's being offered by a business in town, that's treading a fine line. I know sometimes I try to thread the needle and it doesn't work out super well, but no, it works out pretty good. But you know, like, yeah, okay, it's not the same, but it's 85, 90% there. A hybrid idea. Good idea. It's our job to set budgets. We can absolutely just set a budget and say, this is what you have. This is what you have. Run with it, right? That's what we can do, and it's up to staff. Yeah, but we still have time. Still have time to discuss it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Gillick.
I'm wondering if staff is able to give a general idea of how subscribed this program has been.
Yeah, I can go to staff. It's been well received by the community. I believe that's why they talk about the limiting of numbers, because they'd have to have more leaders. But Mr. Orville?
Yes, thank you. It's been full every year since we've been offering it.
So when I've been at the community center and seen the group, I've definitely seen groups that haven't been 40 plus. So my concern is when I hear Councillor Hoffman say that he knows his family member pops in and pops out, so it's not necessarily 40 people every day is what they're seeing. I'm just wondering.
I guess, Mr. Earl, are we tracking the numbers through this function?
Yes, yes, I can say with certainty that the numbers are being tracked. And then again, I think it's for 2 weeks that participants are signed up for. But for the 2-week period, maybe there might be that during that 2-week period that not all the participants show up. Mom and dad might have to go out of town and take the children with them, you know, so, because this isn't solely for childcare or daycare per se for working parents. It's open for all the children in the community, so.
Appreciate those comments. Councillor Julie?
So I think for me, I'm hearing Councillor Norbury and Councillor Noxana loud and clear. Like I say, I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of competing with somebody doing something for free when that's your wheelhouse. I would be more comfortable if we charged as well with the option of the subsidized part. I know that it wouldn't be the same for the district so far as offering those pieces. And the thing is, so if you have families that can afford it, that's the whole idea, right? In my opinion, they can afford it, so they end up subsidizing some for the families that can't. So I think I believe I've been convinced that this is maybe one of those services that we need to look at revamping and having a different way of looking at it so that we aren't competing with another business in our community, particularly when it's childcare. When we have trouble retaining and recruiting those folks, and yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman and myself.
I mean, on paper, I can't really fault the idea. It's the execution. Who's going to set the limits for what sort of income you have? Who's going to check? Who's going to confirm? Who's going to administrate this new cost? When it's free, you sign up, and last year was a week at a time. You drop your kids off. Yes, sometimes they're sick, so you're not going to get literally a 40. You'll get a 30 on a regular basis, but for the most part, it's filled up. And if you don't sign up in time, then sign up early for the week after that. And that's, I think, there's a rotation there. That's not always the same kids. It's run for 8 weeks, and let's just say we had a good experience with that. That's something she wanted to go to, and sometimes she'd had enough and she'd want to take a week off. Like I just thought it was a good way of doing it instead of a daily tally, a once a week tally. And again, all of these ideas, I don't have a problem with any one of them. My problem is what are we going to do this year? I don't see a quick 2-week solution in play here. And that's why I don't know what problems it causes. I don't mind if subsidizing the YMCA for the 12 or 24 or whatever it turns out. I don't have a problem with that this year. I'll have a problem with it next year if we haven't spent the time to fix it. But that's sort of my short-term solution. Then if we needed to add 600 a week for the 6 weeks that we add 3,600 for the YMCA, I don't know if that's legal or not. I'm not making a motion right now. But I think that's an easier solution, a 10%, less than 10% problem for this year for equalizing for the business. And anything else that we do today means staff has to adjust the plan for this year. So whether we reduce the budget, whether we say we want a set fee, I don't know. I think I said it 3 times now, so I'll stop saying it. I just don't think it'll work for this year, which is why I'm supporting as is and going from there.
Thank you, Councillor. So I guess a couple things. I understand that, there's comments made that we're competing and such. There's a couple different things. I mean, yeah, our program's free. Another organization charges. That organization is licensed. That organization can do subsidies. Ms. Torval, district can do subsidies for parents that can't afford the program if we were to decide to put a wage to it or a fee to it?
That would have, sorry, council, that would have to be determined through some kind of a policy through council.
Okay. So I understand from council side, and that's why I kind of thought, and it is, it's the last minute here about a hybrid system. I don't want to throw it out there too much, but maybe we're looking at half the time. So we're not not stating that, this program is drop your children or youth off and pick them up at the end of the day and it's free all day long. My understanding, I mean, we supply a snack. I'm assuming. Dead. I'm assuming that they bring their own lunch. Mr. Orwell, sorry. I'm just assuming, and I looked and I tell council not to look, so. Mr. Orwell?
Yes, they bring their own lunch.
Okay, appreciate that. So my thing is maybe we just ask staff to change operational hours. Whether that's a motion to reduce the budget, and I'm assuming if we reduce this budget, staff will have no choice but to say, okay, here we go. This is our option. Because I did have an opportunity to chat to the organization today. No, I mean pest control. My understanding is, I'm not careful what I say here. My understanding when the conversation I had with her today was they are full with 12 children. Their concern of trying to increase it to the number of 24, which they can with the staff they have today, is the increase in cost to the parent. The cost goes up quite a bit. That was the concern. I had a discussion today with an individual from there. So, that's, I guess, to throw that out there, like the hybrid, I won't even say the hybrid, but we lower the budget, and I would think, and I'm just going to ask Mr. Orville how that would work if we were to lower the amount. I mean, right now we're running it pretty much all day or quite a lengthy time throughout the day, throughout the summer. If we were to lower the budget, would we cancel days or would we could we give that direction that we want to see an overhaul of this summer program where it is not ran the whole day? Still want it 5 days a week, but it's a 4-hour program or whatever it may be that council is comfortable with, whether there's a fee or we're doing a hybrid at no charge for the parents and youth of our community.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. To kind of answer that question, in the next report, there is a breakdown of cost reductions for the summer camp, so
In there? Okay.
it's there.
I didn't want to bring both reports into the
Yeah, no,
conversation.
yeah.
That's kind of why I stayed away from that one at this time.
Yeah,
Okay. No, and I appreciate that. I did read it, so I understood it that way, but I just wanted to,
yeah, so if.
just worried if a motion gets made here and we haven't gotten to that discussion on there. Muddies the water a bit. I know it's tough not to have it separated. It makes sense to have those two reports 100% separated.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just move forward on it. Councillor Julik and then Councillor Noxena.
The biggest thing that is going to weigh heavily for me is that if the YMCA is not able to keep their staff that we need all year, we're in a bigger pickle, because it has been proven that recruitment and retention is brutal right now for ECE. Retention's usually my primary focus, and if you have a staff member that's not able to work the full year, they're going to look at a different option. From what I understand, when the Children's Center switched over to the YMCA, that was a big hurdle to get through, and I think that we need to continue to work very closely with them. And the reports that we're getting back from our counselors that are the liaisons for the Child Care Task Force is that the YMCA will feel this if we continue to have this program. So for me, that's why I will be voting to.
No motion on the floor.
All right. I am leaning towards that we look seriously at some different options through this. I think we really need to support the YMCA.
Thank you. I got Councillor Noxena, then Councillor Norbury.
Thank you. One of the governance considerations is that if we were reducing hours, a reduction in program length could mean difficulty in attracting employees. And I'm not sure how that would look. If we definitely want a reduction in hours if we're keeping this a free program. I don't know if you can find employees that only want to work 3 hours a day. Typically, these are summer students and they want a job for the summer. They need to make some money. If we heard back that that wouldn't be an issue and we could reallocate them somewhere else within the district, maybe that would be a consideration we could talk about. I did some quick math. Based on the budget for the 2024 summer camp for 8 weeks, it works out to $129 a child. And that is the cost of running this camp that our taxpayers are paying for. So I would be more in favor of charging that back to parents who want to access this camp, and perhaps having a conversation with the YMCA about what options are out there for parents who can't afford this care, and helping those parents that need the help.
Yeah, just before I go to Councilor Norbert, I just think I make a comment. To me, this is a summer camp, this isn't summer care. I believe that's why we have YMCA. When you mentioned that, you mentioned about care, and I think, to be honest, I think this is a camp that we're trying to involve in our children and our youth to come out and participate in things. But to me, it may look like care, but really and truly, man, I think we got to make sure that we are not advertising or promoting it as childcare throughout the week. To me, that's not the whole goal, and that's why I suggest like a hybrid where it's not a full day. So if somebody's looking for proper care for their children because they're at work, then obviously to me, use YMCA or any other organization or group. Just your one comment, Councilor Knox, that was all.
Absolutely, I understand this is a summer camp, not child care, licensed quality child care. However, the reality is that parents are using this as child care. And I understand that there needs to be an option for these children. However, the option is the YMCA center, and that charges a fee. And that's the hurdle we're facing right now. So if you can access free care or paid care, what are you going to do?
No. Councilor Norbury and then Councilor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor Kikaka. I want to make a point to Councillor Hoffman. There's plenty of time to make plans, to change plans. Like the program doesn't start until July, right? Like there's plenty of time for us to come up with an idea. You know, just my comment again to the charging. I think we have to come up with a different solution. There are people that still want to utilize this program to give their children something to do during the day, whether it be childcare, whether it be a fun activity for them. Some people are absolutely using this for care. Some people are just using it for something fun for their kids to do. They don't need it. They're just sending it in. You know, my perspective about this whole situation is that, you know, some of us can't afford to pay for YMCA. We should. You know, it shouldn't. So I just think we need to look at other options other than having to pay and adding another burden onto staff to, well, we need to come up with a structure to allow for low-income families that can get it. And what does that look like, right? Like, you know, yeah, say you know, husband or wife's working at the mine making $90,000 a year, but, you know, you have 3 kids. So your income may not be the perfect reflection of your ability to pay for a program. So I still think it's vital that we keep it free, but you know, yeah, I think we just kind of set a budget and let staff come up with an idea.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. From what I'm hearing, the retention, Councillor Julich's point of retention, I think is absolutely valid. And just as a little thought experiment right now, if we cancel this and not have a camp, is there 12 kids going to be in at 180 at the YMCA? And I don't think so. I could be wrong. But from just being there, you have to be there by 3:30 to pick up your kid. I don't know of many full-time shifts that run for 6 hours. Like that's, yeah, I'm sure some parents do use it for that. But that being the reason that we're going to reduce this program, I don't think that's the answer. We have high utilization. It's a mix. And you're basically wanting to force out a group that would use the YMCA. And I don't know the mechanism on how you would do that for this 2-month period. But I keep hearing the same thing, that we want to charge or we want this mechanism. I think it's just as simple. Do we want to have a program like this or not? If you reduce it an hour, I don't think that's changing on who's using it and who's not. So if that's a cost-cutting measure, then, I mean, we can have that discussion. But for 6 hours or 6.5 hours a day here for 2 months, this is not a replacement for full-time care. This is not a drop-off with the same standards as what the activities and what the care level is versus YMCA versus this. And I get the retention, and if you have an answer for me for how we can improve the chance of retention, I'm all ears. But I don't think cutting this program is going to put in 12 kids at 180 a week for the 6 weeks that the YMCA is running during this time. I don't think it's a straight one-to-one comparison. And I mean, that's just it. So if we have a discussion, if we want to reduce budget or reduce hours, I think we can make that motion and we can have that discussion. But we're talking about 2 months here, a quarter of which the YMCA is closed. And I don't think we're going to come up with the answer of retention in the next 5 minutes or at this budget. And we need a budgetary decision in the next 2 weeks, not an answer of how we're going to do it. Speaking to Councillor Norbury's point, like I get the program's not coming in yet, but we're making a decision now on whether we're funding this or not. And that's where we're at. And I don't know what the general feeling is, but if nobody else wants to make a motion, I'll make one. But since we have a lot more hybrid stuff, I'll give somebody else the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to put it out there, looking for direction from council for staff. Leave it is and move forward into the next report and talk about it then. Don't matter to me, but we need direction. If there's no more discussion, then we'll move on and it can be discussed in the next report. Councillor Knoxana.
Thank you. I feel bad doing this, but I'm going to make a motion that we ask for a report to look at the feasibility of charging a fee for this program or reducing hours. How would I say, because we still want to retain staff, so would a 2-hour program be able to retain staff? So either severely reducing hours or charging a fee for this program.
Okay, so let's just go over that again. You're looking for a report for a feasibility study.
Feasibility on significantly reducing hours or charging a fee for the cost of this program.
Review on
Does that make
reducing
sense?
hours or charging a fee. Okay, all right, take a seconder first.
Just wait.
Councillor Norbury, discussion. Councillor Knoxana? Okay, Councillor Norbury.
My only comment is that it's unfair to say severely reduced hours without saying what that is, because that's very open to interpretation. Maybe staff means that's 6, maybe we mean 4. I think I'd be more comfortable if we had a number. So if we reduced it to a 4-hour program, I'll amend it to say reduced to a 4-hour program, just so that we can start somewhere.
Okay, seconder on the amendment of 4 hours, Councillor Knoxana. Discussion on the amendment. So I guess, I'm going to discuss this amendment first here. No, I'll wait. I'll wait on the amended, I'll wait till it goes, if it gets through, then I'll talk about the motion on the floor. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor. Sometimes it's like we make motions and no one's talking, so it's like we have to make a decision. Maybe we just need to slow it down, take a second to think. Like even I'm second guessing. Do we want to say 4 hours, or we just want to look at different options? Leave some space for staff to give us the information saying a 4-hour program would cost X, a 6-hour program would cost X. You know, I think that's where we should be at. So I think we start over. I'm sorry. I think we shoot it down on both. Take a few seconds, get a good motion that encapsulates everything. But of course, I could be the minority, and you know, yeah. But I think we shoot down. Take a breath.
Okay, so I'm going to just have a comment, and then I'm going to go to staff. My thing is the report is very clear in front of us. If we want to reduce hours, put a motion to reduce hours, staff will assume that budget. When we talk about getting a feasibility, a report on feasibility on reducing hours, again, I'd like to produce the report after this report, because a lot of time I would think went into it. When I read it, I think so again, it's in the next report about reducing hours and stuff. So I just want to make those comments because I know staff was looking this way. So, Mr. Orville, you had your button pushed.
Thank you, council. I just wanted to say that if council is heading towards wanting to implement a charge for a program, play escape program at the community center, then it could affect our fees and charges bylaw as well, which will take some time to get approved.
Thank you. I was going to finish up with that, but thank you for that. I was going to say, no, I appreciate it because I had it written down in regards to fees and charges by law, but So that's my thing, is if to me, and that's why I came out with the word hybrid in regards to this. I understand what we tried to do previously, previous council I sat on, and it was brought forward by, I think it was a great idea by that councillor, and, you know, I mean, my apologies, I didn't realize that we stepped on toes with another organization. It's too bad they didn't come forward. I think we could have had quite a discussion about that. When I see this is for 40 children, up to 40 each week. It could be the same 40 all summer long, it could be different every week. I think that's a big number, or could be a big number. My thing is, when we're asking for a feasibility on what it looks like if we were to reduce these hours of summer camp and or change the hours, we could do that right now with a motion instead of looking for another report. Councillor Knoxan and Councillor Julik.
Thank you. So I'm not opposed to putting a number in the report that if it was or the motion 3 hours, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever it was. I'm more just wondering what the opinion is on staff. If we can hire someone, will there be staff for this program? If we have a summer program for a half day, can those staff be allocated to different areas in the afternoon? Or if the program's in the afternoon, can the staff work somewhere else in the morning? So I understand that we could just make a motion and change the hours, but I would hate to put the motion through and then 0 applicants apply for this job because they don't see that it's even able for that, like they can't even work full time. So I don't know.
Yeah, I can ask that question. My understanding of the seasonal workers, so I know we keep saying summer students, but it's seasonal workers, is there's a budget total number. I understand it's well broken down later in our agenda. Very good job done there. I would assume, again, I don't want to speak for staff, but my understanding of how I read this next report is this is what it would look like in certain departments, but if we only cut down certain departments but not other departments, and they needed hours there, people would be, their seasonal workers would be moved around to wherever the district sees fit to run the corporation. Mr. Orville?
That is correct, yes.
So I'll be honest on that question too, that, if we decide to cut hours or whatever decides out of this idea, that would be up to the individuals if they decide to apply with the District of Tunbridge. Can't control it. But I believe later in the report talks about how we actually looked for multiple people last year and couldn't fill all of our positions. Not everybody applied to fill those positions. So it could be a possibility that we don't fill them and then something doesn't happen, whether that's the summer camp. It could be something else within the municipality as a corporation that doesn't get filled. So, okay. So the motion on the floor is feasibility on reducing hours. Oh yeah, we're at the amendment. Jesus. Thanks, Councillor Noberry. Oh, the amendment was, sorry, fill me in again, 4 hours. 4 hours. My bad. See, I didn't want to comment here. I wanted to wait. Sorry, we're debating about getting feasibility on reducing to 4 hours or changing summer camp to 4 hours. Or charging. Okay, or charging. Thank you. So make sure I have it clear. Councillor Julik and then Councillor Clickash.
I'm not in favor of any of the things on the floor.
Only one thing.
I'm not in favor of the amendment. I think that we have a very well-rounded report here. I have some other things to say, but nothing specific to the amendment other than I won't support it.
Okay, we'll move on after that. Councillor Clickash.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of it either. The thing is, I see now you got a snack that's supposed to be served. When are you going to serve that? You got 4 hours from 9 till 12, right? Or 1 o'clock, I mean. From 9 to 1 o'clock. So there's a lot of issues that have to be changed and looked at here. So I'm not in favor of it, the whole thing.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion in regards to the amendment? Councillor Dussault.
I am also not in favor of the motion on the floor. I don't know what we're going to do here. I don't know, but I can't support it.
Thank you. Any more discussion in regards to the amendment? Okay. Don't want to speak out of turn, Councillor, but turn your mic on, but my understanding, the amendment is to add the 4 hours on the reducing of the hours part.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? All of council's opposed. Motion is, the amendment is defeated. Okay, so now we're back to the regular motion. The regular motion is a feasibility on reducing hours or charging for the summer camp program. Councillor Noxana, correct?
Yes, significantly reducing hours, so not by an hour,
Okay.
by not 4 hours, because we've agreed to that. Thank you.
Thank you. So feasibility on significantly reducing hours or charging for the summer camp program. Okay, discussion. I got Councillor Julick and then Councillor Norbury.
I'm not going to support this motion either. I think we have a fairly well-rounded support or well-rounded report here already, and the thought of going to a bylaw change is also seems like a lot of work. And again, I have some other thoughts, but I'll wait for this motion to finish up if that was be your preference.
Is it about this motion? I don't want to hold you back if it's in regards to the motion that's on the floor.
Like if we're going to still be talking about childcare when we're done this motion
Well, I would hope we're not talking about childcare because we don't do childcare, we do a summer camp.
or summer camp?
Summer
Sorry.
camp will still be on the floor.
All right. I will wait until summer camp is still on the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I think this is the decision time. I don't think it's report time. I think this time we need to start making decisions. We have a good report in front of us. Won't support it at this time.
Thank you. You took the words out of my mouth. I have no comment. Any more discussion? Okay. The motion on the floor is a feasibility on significantly reducing hours or charging for the summer program. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Opposed is Councillor Dussault, Councillor Clickash, Councillor Julick, Councillor Hoffman, Councillor Norbury, Mayor Kakalka. Motion is defeated. Okay. Anything else from council? Councillor Julick.
So as we're discussing, I think to myself, like for me, what I need to break it down to is what is it, bottom line, what does this look like? What are we doing here? So bottom line, it started out as a service to our residents in hopes that it would be affordable for families that were not able to access other services. And I understand the desire for that. I think if we look at the other services that could be used in our community, when do we start doing those then? What about the people who can't afford to leave town? Do we start having a bus service that we offer for free? What if we had, you know, like I could make a list. It hits home because it's children. Again, for me, the need is more, to Councillor Hoffman, he feels, from what I understood from what he said, was that he did not feel that this program would make a difference on the retention of staff at YMCA. And for me, if we take away revenue from YMCA, then that makes it so they're not operable. They are a nonprofit. And so while maybe this year it's not that dollar amount, maybe it's something else. I think we've always tried to be very careful that we don't compete with business in our community. YMCA is a business in our community. I think that that's one of the things that we're looking at here. The other thing, like I said, that we're looking at is we're providing a social service of sorts. So if we're going to do that for this demographic, why aren't we doing it for the other demographics? For me, that's the only way I can break it down. Heartstrings, absolutely. Do I want to provide a summer camp for kids and for families who wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise? I absolutely do. Do I think we can maybe find a different way to do that without being in direct competition? I do. Maybe it is a way of subsidizing YMCA, having to work out some kind of an agreement with YMCA on that. It is unfortunate we weren't able to talk to YMCA, but this is the reality of where we're at. We didn't get a chance to talk to them. We got feedback from Councillor Norbury and Councillor Noxana, and so I could make a motion, but I don't want to cut off of discussion. And I also agree that I think we need to slow it down and everybody have a conversation. It's not necessarily a debate. It's about having a conversation about what it looks like for you as the councillor and what that looks like for you serving your community. And so those are the things that make me look at this incident as serving my community.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you. I just want to clarify what I said. What my little thought experiment was, if we cancel this program, I'm not convinced that from this program you're getting 12 kids paying $180 a week, or sorry, families paying $180 per kid for the retention at YMCA, which is why I was talking about other avenues of trying to protect it. So I hear it, I respect it, I get it. I just don't see this program as in direct competition because of the hours that it covers. Whether it goes to 1 or 2 or 3, it's not covering full-time hours for somebody to work a regular 9 to 5 weekly job. So that's where I am with this. And to answer your other points, it's kids and seniors are not the same to me as other groups. Kids don't get a choice. They don't get a choice to live here. They are stuck here. So this is just something I think really does improve their lot, forces some socialization, some structured activity, and the price for it for 2 months when they're out of school, I think's there. And that's why I'm more than happy to discuss retention for YMCA and what we need to do for that, because I do think it's important. I don't believe this program is the difference between them being viable or not.
Thank you. I got myself and then Councillor Norbury. So when I did have a discussion today in regards with YMCA, they cannot expand plus they're over their means. So they can't just hire anybody. They have to be licensed. They're a licensed agency. They can't just hire casual workers to help offset a summer program. They can. They just have to be licensed. They have to be of age and be licensed, or at least going into school for it, like for their licensing. Because I asked that question. I asked about the joining it or something. So I just want to make sure Council's aware of that. I'm going to go to Councilor Norbury. Before I do, I just want to make comment that other, and I understand everybody wants to slow down. We need to make a decision here. This will be the last comment. There's no motion. I'm going to move on in the agenda unless there's a motion coming from the floor for clear direction to staff. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. You know, we're having a good discussion about the merits of the program or not, competing against business, how that weighs in. The other side is that we have, used to be 4 subsidized positions. We used to have 4 seasonal workers. Excuse me for this.
Thank you.
Now we have 0. That's also playing into my opinion about this position, about this program. You know, in previous discussions, we were always told you never talk about staffing levels. We talk about budget numbers. We're moving into the next discussion about staff reductions. How does staff want us to play this? Because my thoughts is that I'm happy making a motion about reducing the staff by X%. Should we be looking at budgetary number versus staff?
Was this for this one or is that next? I planned on asking that question.
Well, I asked it for you.
So let's wait till we get to that report.
Okay.
Does that sound right? We're just not there. We're just on that report as well. And then once we get on the floor, we can ask staff how they want that handled. Okay, any more discussion in regards to this? Okay, we're going to move on. It's still within the agenda. It's still within the budget, so it's not like we can't have that. Just want to make sure it's clear, but to me, we need to move on. And before we move on to the next report, I'm going to be honest, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Okay, going to call the meeting back to order. We're moving on to 4.3, seasonal staffing, a report dated April 22nd, 2024. Collaboratively prepared by all affected departments regarding the seasonal staffing. Recommendation. Councilor Nobre,
That we receive this report for discussion.
seconder. Councilor Julich, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mr. Orlo, before we get into it, how do you want us to handle this? We got to be very, very careful how we, to me, as council, how we talk about staff.
Exactly.
Staffing.
Yeah, so if you want to look at reduction of numbers, percentages, budget,
Not the employee.
not the employee.
Okay. But it's fine when we talk, I just want clarity before we get into this. To me, if we go off the sidetrack, please push the button. But we're allowed to talk, and when it comes to, as a public works as a whole,
Yes.
in regards to a reduction if we so decide.
Yes.
Good?
Yes.
Okay. So all I do is ask council to please do not talk about positions. Talk about the department as a whole. I mean, I know they have them broken down, and I believe that's probably okay because they've put it in front of us. But if we just don't talk about the possible individuals that are within those functions, I think we stay on this side and there's no getting involved by the individual person.
Mine's still on.
Does that make sense? Councilor Nobre.
Thank you, Mayor Kakakis. So just to be clear, we're going to talk about Public Works as a whole, not any of the 1 through 10.
Nope, we can talk about spring cleanup, litter pickup, but please do not talk about staff A, staff B, staff C, whatever it may be. We all know individuals that work within, and summer students do come back, or sorry, seasonal workers, see, I use the same thing. Seasonal workers do come back, but we just don't want to use individuals. It's just about the department, so Public Works, and then they have spring cleanup, and then they have, and so on and so on. And then other departments will come forward in this report as well. Again, if we just talk about that clarity of that department.
Thank you. Okay, that's clear. So in my opinion, for almost the entirety of Public Works, I think we could be looking at a 50% reduction, in my opinion. We get the lawns are a little longer. Maybe we have a couple of extra pieces of trash on the ground, but this is not vital for, this is not vital. And what it comes back to me is that these positions were funded via grants. Now they're not. Because of that, we need to look at reductions. I've had to feel that myself. You know, the changing landscape of summer jobs. There's Canada Summer Works as well. There's other funding agencies. It means we got to do a little more. So before making a motion, I thought I'd just start the discussion there. I could potentially see things like airport maintenance or airport maintenance, outdoor recreation, playground inspection. Potentially we look at less there, but I think we could be looking at half. The lawns get a little longer. That's okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. I got Councillor Hoffman and Councillor Julich.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Norbury and I came to the exact opposite conclusions. I think there's sort of a general, I shouldn't say general, there's some perception that the sort of seasonal work is make work projects. A lot of this I don't want to see reduced. I think especially the maintenance stuff, underbrush and things need to get done. And everything that we don't do this year just means we have to do more next year. The vast majority of this list, I think, is vital. I think crack filling, pothole patching, catch basin repair, maybe some little movement on golf course grounds, but even then, if you're letting things degrade, it just means it's going to cost you more time and more effort in the future. And how do we keep up with this? I'm more concerned that we're eventually going to have to add more full-time staff year-round just to have enough of these things being covered. So no, I'm at a spot where I didn't see anything other. There was a few things, I shouldn't say anything, but I can't see a major reduction in this not costing us in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Julich and then Councillor Noxena.
I said at the beginning of the meeting, and I still haven't heard anything much to change my mind at this point. about how we pay for the excess of things this year. I only have two things that I would be willing to see service reductions in, and that would be the spring cleanup and the extra hours at the landfill station. Other than that, I think that when I look at the 22,000 that we normally would only receive from the Canada Summer Jobs program, $22,000 in the grand scheme. Again, I see some other things that we've kept on our capital and our grant and aid and fee for service that I would be more willing to see a reduction in. I think reading over the report, these things are important. I agree with Councillor Hoffman that then they just build up as we continue to have our secondary industry in our community be tourism. The way to increase tourism is not to have our community not look good. And that's a big part of the summer jobs or the seasonal working folks that are here. You know, I don't necessarily golf all the time, so could I pick golfing? Yeah, I'm sure there would be a response to that, though, for people who do enjoy golfing. You know, so what I mean, like, so my point in that being, like, if we went through the different areas that we would want to see staff reduction, I think that there would be an argument for or against. I think as a whole, this is something that we've always done. Maybe not always done, but this is something that has been done. I know I'm very proud of our community, how it looks. I'm very proud of our staff being able to work the other parts of the year without the extra work. And so they plan, my guess is that they plan for these seasonal workers and they put stuff off for these things. So I'm not in favor of any reduction at this point. I feel like we have not had thorough enough conversations to make these kind of reductions, which is why, again, I will support going to our surplus for this year and having more fulsome discussions and guidelines set up for next year.
Thank you. Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. Well, I'm maybe not in favor of a 50% reduction this year for Public Works. I would definitely support 25%. I think most of these things say there's delays or like delays in providing the service, or it's going to take some extra time to maintain an area to what we usually see, but it's not to the point where this is going to degrade our grass or our flower gardens or anything like that through Public Works in a way that can't be recovered in future years. We're looking at cutting costs. This is, in my opinion, how it's going to have to come about.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kikaka. When I say Public Works, I was just going to Roads Department. Roads Department afterwards, I think. Yep. Everything there is important because that's safety stuff, but yeah, you know, it's something. I don't think we need 4 people out there with weed whackers 8 hours a day. Why don't we have 3? Why don't we have 2 and somebody more? Like, I think we can do that. I think it's doable. Rather than having the lawns mowed, you know, 2 times a week, it's done twice every 3 weeks. That is absolutely acceptable. Maybe 50% is too much, but I think we need to be looking at reductions here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dussault.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I would be in favor also of a 25% reduction. We're already into a hot, dry summer. I mean, how much is our grass going to grow realistically through the summer? Probably not a lot. So, I mean, that could be cut back. The weed whacking could be cut back. I agree the roads are very important. Absolutely. We need to keep that. But I think for a lot of the other stuff, it could be cut back. I don't think we need that many employees.
Any more discussion in regards to that? Okay. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kikako. Make a motion that for 1 through 13, of the Public Works seasonal staffing, we make a 25% reduction.
Seconder, Councillor Noxena. Discussion. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually think that's reasonable. I was looking across the board. I think that'll amount to a roughly 10 to 15% total reduction in hours. And yeah, we're not touching the, I think the more critical cumulative stuff by doing it this way. I can support that.
Thank you. Councillor Julick and then Councillor Norbury.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Basically for the same reason that I said before. I think that there's other avenues for us to approach this, and I just don't feel that we've explored them all. I don't think we've had a fulsome discussion with staff about this. We've asked for a report, so we're making a lot of inferences. Maybe the weather stays good, maybe it stays dry, maybe it gets wet, then we've got long ditches. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, nobody has a crystal ball. So for me, we're making decisions based on assumptions. And not all assumptions, I'll give you that. I think that there's another way to go about this, and I think that this isn't the year for us to do it. I don't think that we've had good enough discussions around this. I won't be supporting it.
Thank you. So this is the opportunity to discuss. The report was made by staff, and, you know, I think obviously the report was asked by council. And to me, they put it out there, and they put the steps out of what we asked for. Here's what it looks like if it's 25%. Here's what it looks like if it's 50, and here's what it looks like if it's 75. I guess our job as council is what service level do we want? To me, that's what we have to ask ourselves, is what service level do we want to see within the community? I mean, I'll say this summer, if that's what we're talking about, is our seasonal casual workers, and the stuff that's pretty much listed within this department is summer-related tasks. And I think that's what we need to discuss or debate with each other, is what service level do we want to see our community have for the summer? Whether that's, what do we expect for lawn? What do you expect for roads? The tarring, whatever may be listed here. Are we good waiting for an extra week? Are we good waiting for an extra 2 weeks? I believe that's, to me, that's what the report was put in front of us. Very, very thorough report. Well worked on. Obviously, it took a very big group of staff that worked together as a team, came forward with their ideas and information for council to debate. The service level that we want to see for the community, and service level that we can, whether you want to say answer to it or live up to. Because to me, whatever way this goes, this is not staff reducing or reduction. This is council making decisions on a service level that we're putting out within the community. So it is us, not staff. So I want to make that very, very clear. Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Julick.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. And I'll add on to what you were saying. And the other part to that is, what is our community willing to pay for? Some people, they're fine paying taxes. They see it as a social responsibility. I'm one of those people. I believe in a subscription service to life, and we got to pay taxes. But it comes down to at what level is appropriate. At this point in time, I'm going to support the 25% because at this point, I feel my community telling me that this service is too much and they're not willing to pay that much. They want to see a reduction. That could change next year. This year, we start hearing people commenting about how bad everything looks. It'll come back on me, my decisions, it'll come back on us as council, not on staff. And they're happy to shift that blame upwards because that's our job. To say, hey, we heard from people, they're concerned about the cost that these things are costing us, and they'd like to see a change. We're going to try a change. If the residents next year say, hey, we want to see our community look more beautiful, then we'll change it. At this point in time, I support 25%. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Julick.
When I look at 1 to 13, the 25% reduction in the report, and I would agree the report is very extensive and very fulsome, and I appreciate it. For me, it's not about what's written on paper, it's about having the conversations, is what I meant by a discussion. So if we were to go one by one, so we're going to have extended time for spring litter, spring cleanup and litter, extended time required to complete tasks, potentially prolonging project durations by several weeks. Okay, you can live with that. The lawn seeding, extended tasks to completion times due to reduced staffing. So this year, maybe we don't get the rain, so then we wait to weed, or we wait to seed, and then that doesn't take because we don't have any rain. We could play those stories all around if we wanted. Playground inspection. Delays in repairing playground equipment may occur due to limited staffing. So then we have children getting hurt, possibly, because those maintenance things aren't getting done. Outdoor recreation area maintenance, extended durations required to complete tasks and cover all designated areas. So I know in the past there have been people coming to council to say they don't like how the soccer fields are because they haven't been taken care of and they're not mowed and they're not irrigated and. So that's one of the things that we've talked about. Weed whacking, extended time required to maintain areas effectively. I know that when we've had full staff, there's areas that don't get done, particularly hills, because you can't use a lawnmower on there, and unfortunately, we live in a community that's full of hills. Push mowers, weed whacking, some areas will not meet proper maintenance standards. So it's recognized that those things aren't going to be taken care of, and so we aren't going to have those things done because of the reduction. Inadequate maintenance on the right-of-way mowing due to the inability to cover all areas with the required time frame. We talked about that on our highways, those things not getting done. We have animals coming in out of the ditches, that kind of thing. Invasive weed control. Controlling invasive plants will become more challenging. Continued invasive weeds makes for a way bigger problem because then they get a chance to multiply. Reduced maintenance due to limited staffing will lead to areas becoming overgrown with weeds. That would be the horticulture plants and trees, which I don't, again, with the weeds, those just things grow up and then they don't get a ability to come out. The irrigation of sports field later in the year, so delayed setup of sprinklers due to reduced staffing. The watering of flowers, so all the plants and the trees that we've budgeted for and we're planting may die because we don't have enough staff to water the stuff that we have put in. The airport, inability to maintain grounds and buildings to establish maintenance standards. So what does that look like later on? And does that get worse coming on? General maintenance, inability or unable to complete tasks and maintain areas to the required standards. So we've set up policy and required standards, and now we're saying it's okay not to do those. And then, so that's 1 to 13. And so then I'm going to say, well, I want to have the beautification, so I'm going to move down and I want to have golf course. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like if we start, we're cherry picking is what it feels like to me. I won't be supporting any reductions.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor Kikaka. I'll respond to Councillor Julix. If we go one by one, we are cherry picking. By making 1 to 13, we can let staff make a determination on how much they want to spend, where they want to spend their staff time. That's what I'm looking at. I don't think 1 to 13, take 25% from each. In total, your budget's reduced by 25% for these operations. You make the decisions on what you think is most important. That's our responsibility at this point in time. I believe our responsibility is to reduce the budget to a level that our residents will be happy with. Not everyone's going to be happy with it, but we need to find the balance. So I don't want to cherry pick each one. Thanks.
Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to be clear that we're not actually specifying that each of these are separately going to be reduced at 25%. As I understood it, that between the group of 1 to 13, that there'd be a 25% reduction and essentially left to staff to decide the priorities and what needs to be done, as opposed to each individual one being reduced by 25%. Was that correct?
That's my understanding of the motion. Just read the motion back, Ms. Torval, please.
Thank you. Do you have that?
That Public Works Department services listed on items 1 through 13 be reduced by 25%.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And to my mind, that is setting the priority. That is what we're doing. We're saying that these groups of tasks are a lower priority than the ones that we're not mentioning, and we're leaving it to staff to set their priorities and do the best job that they can. And that's exactly what I'm asking them to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Julich.
So my question would be then, of those 13 items, if we're reducing it by 25%, what happens to the one that gets reduced by 75%? Like when I look at this report and I hear 25%, what I'm looking at is if we're doing it across the top, this is what happens if each of these items get reduced by 25%. If we're saying we're leaving this up to staff, then we aren't as council saying what we want and what we don't want. We're saying we're taking away 25% of your budget and you have to decide what to do with it. So then what if staff decides, like, so then they're trying to read our minds, let's say, and they pick something different? Because if we're saying 25% for 1 to 13, that means there's going to be some items on there that are going to be reduced more than 25%. So for me, then we are asking staff. We aren't taking the hit.
So my understanding of the motion on the floor is 1 to 13 is 25% reduction. That's 25% reduction on number 1, 25% reduction on number 2. Again, I'm not asking staff to pick and choose. We're giving clear direction that it's 25% from line items 1 to 13. That is my understanding of the motion on the floor. We can all read it a different way. That's my understanding of the motion on the floor. It was just read back by staff. 1 to 13, 25% reduction. That's what we're asking staff to do, is reduce those numbers by 25% from 1 to 13. That's all of them included. Every one of them loses 25%. That's my understanding of the motion, unless it needs to be amended. Councillor Knoxena.
Thank you. I also want to clarify, this isn't 25% of their budget we're taking away. This is 25% of the budget for seasonal workers. It's just our seasonal workers we're looking at this moment. And these reduction in services that are laid out very clearly, 25, 50, 75%, it's pretty clear what we can expect to see by reducing these in each department. So I'm still in favor of reducing by 25% for items 1 to 13, because this is what we as a community can afford. This is the level of service we as a community can afford this year. We can't have the soccer field irrigated at full. We're going to take it down 25%. So always, yeah, absolutely in favor of the motion. And
Thank you. Any more discussion? Councillor Julich.
It isn't all the community can afford. That's my point. My point is that we have had a surplus. We can do it this year. We can, even we don't have to do the all of it. Like I'm not even saying that, but to say that we don't have another choice, that's incorrect. We haven't even gone through the whole capital budget. Like, I mean, so I could talk about some other stuff that we could get rid of, you know, and maybe shift some money here and shift some money there. I think it's important to keep our community looking as good as our community looks. I feel that I've been told many times throughout this budget session that, well, if we put that off, like we have an asphalt reserve because we understand that those things have to be done. So we set up an asphalt reserve. We have a community works fund. We have a water reserve. We have resiliency grants. You know, we have the PRA funding. Is there some stuff that we can shift in there so that we don't, you know what I mean? Like, have we explored all the options? I'm not even saying that we need to take all of it. I just want to make sure that when we're making statements that we're very careful about how we understand and how we're making our choices. And for me, I believe we would be going backwards. Tourism is our secondary industry in our community. That's the one that happens for us when the mines shut down again, because they will. And so we've been building on this. And do I think that some long grass is gonna make a big difference? Not necessarily. Do I think playground equipment not being repaired Will that make it be an issue? Yeah, maybe it will be. So I just, if we were, if we did not have money put away, that would be one thing. Ultimately, this is because we didn't get our collective agreement done, because we would have been chunked it away a little bit differently. I'm looking to the mayor to give me a nod or a shake.
I can answer that. I'll be honest. The QP agreement has nothing to do with council. They were without agreement for a year and a bit. That was due to whatever was happening in regards to QP and the regional advisory team. It had nothing to do with the district of Tunbridge. But I'll just get clarity because I'm well aware of that. But again, I don't want to speak on, I don't sit there and negotiate as a staff member or a council member. But Mr. Rova, is that not correct what happened? Staff was ready and prepared to negotiate. There was issues or concerns from the regional side. The bodies kept on changing.
Yes, council, that is correct. The other side, QB wasn't ready when we were. Kept
Perfect.
ready. Yep.
I'm glad for that clarification. Yeah, I guess, and bottom line for me, nothing that's been said here today has convinced me that taking $1 million from whatever that number is that big of a hit. And that still is not saying that we're not taking the taxes down, or that we're still not going to have an increase. We will. It's just not the $135 per thousand or the 13.5%. And so I'm just not willing to trade at this point.
Thank you. Any more comments? Councilor Norberry. Oops, sorry. Thought I hit it.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. My only comments is utilizing reserves for operational expenditures is bad process, because we'll take from it. We need to look at reductions in operational so that we can sustain it over a period of time. You know, there's been talks about if we kept up with inflation with our tax rates, we would be in a bare state financially. Yeah, we would be. But taking reserves to pay for operational, I think it takes away from tomorrow, right? Like some of that bank is for asset management. Some of it's for, well, a large portion of it is if there is an economic downturn. So I think it's our duty to try and look at cost reductions in our current operations to sustain what we can get through taxation or increase our taxation. And at the point that I'm at, we need to reduce the level of taxation and taking from reserves. I'm worried about we're taking from tomorrow to pay for today, which we should just be looking at today.
Thank you. Councilor Gillick.
So my question would be then, currently we're looking at service reductions just for the summer. Is it not possible then to look for service reduction all year round?
To me, what we asked for was this report that was put in front of us.
Sure.
So that's to me, I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't go that route with asking for a report. I think the reason this report was asked for and supported by council was because we were looking at ways of reducing the deficit. We understand that departments always try to make sure that they have a certain service level that was set by council. When council sent a deficit to me, council put this report or asked for this report from staff to see what it would look like if we were to reduce some of the service level. Staff to me worked very hard when I read this report, very thorough, and this is their options. This is, if we reduce any staff level for seasonal workers, this is what we can expect in regards to services for our community. I think it's pretty clear. Doesn't mean that, at another point or another meeting that we can ask for another report if that's something the council wants to go down. But this, I think, was a way for council to look at the deficit that was put in front of us when we worked the process through budget. Councilor Gillick.
So do we have a figure of what 25% reduction looks like? I'm sorry.
No problem. Ms. Dorval.
Yes, I'm looking for it.
Sorry, I got all my pages over. I try to find the page, but
It is on page 18 of your agenda.
thank you.
Oh, look.
Okay, any more discussion? Need a couple minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay, any more discussion? Councillor Julik.
So if I'm looking at this, we will still be at 205,000. We're only, sorry,
No problem.
my brain's not working.
Ms. Torval, if we reduce 1 to 13 by 25%, do we have a total cost savings, what that number would be?
I'll ask Mr. Curry to, or Mr. McPhail. The team.
Take a few minutes if we need to, but I think that's the number that we're looking for.
Thank you, Ms. Torville, Mayor and Council. So the way that we had scheduled the actual reductions was looking more at the department as a whole. So if you look at this page with the breakdown, we have grounds laborers for Public Works at 6 and 18 weeks. So we'd have to look back and see where those individuals would be scheduled for numbers 1 to 13. So we weren't prepared to have that in terms of it. Looking at just across the board, if we move the chips to wherever the chess pieces would be to accomplish what council's talking about tonight, for number 1 to 13, it would be very similar to a 25% reduction to both of those, which would be two 8-week positions and 1 16-week positions. However you want to cut that, it could be 4 8 weeks and 2 16ers or however it works. And it's roughly around the $35,000 mark is what you're looking at saving so far.
Thanks, staff, for that. Good thing I didn't throw my number out. I was a little higher than you. Not by much, but I just did easy math, rounded up. Okay, any more discussion with the motion on the floor? Okay, motion on the floor is to reduce 1 to 13 by 25%. Going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Klick-Gash, Councillor Julik, Mayor Kakalko are opposed. Motion carries. Okay. Oops, sorry. I just want to say, Councillor Noxano.
Thank you. I have a question before we go on with the road repair section. It's not titled, but I'm going to.
Roads Department?
Would having the light truck or the number 35 in our capital list, the light mounted traffic control lights, be able to reduce the amount of summer students we need to work on these projects, or the opposite? If we were able to take out the truck, could we keep these staff positions in this summer? Are they interchangeable, or some of them interchangeable?
Okay, I'll ask that question. It's not a truck, it's a trailer. Or whatever you want to call it, but it's not a truck. But Ms. Torwell, I think the question is, if we were to remove this, would it offset the cost? Councillor Julik, or Councillor Noxani, I just want to repeat that.
Yeah, so at number 35 in our capital list, we have a trailer mounted traffic control light apparatus. Would some of the summer students' positions be eliminated by this truck? Or in reverse, if we were to eliminate this truck, would we be able to keep 100% of these students busy this summer?
Okay, so casual seasonal workers, and just so everybody's aware, it's under PRA funding.
No, but once we switch those out, usually there's.
They could move it around.
Yeah.
Mr. Orville? So I guess what we're asking, if we were to, if we keep the trailer mounted traffic control system, if within the budget under PRA funding, my understanding from the staff report, that limits the amount of traffic control individuals we need. If we were to remove that, would that we would need to increase the amount of staff? Did I capture it, Councillor Noxana? Yeah, I don't want to answer, I know the answer, but Ms. Torval?
Thank you, council. I'm just having some conversations here, kind of silent, but I'll ask Mr.
Do you guys need a minute?
Yes, I believe we do. You're good? Okay. Mr. Bradley.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the traffic control lights would be to reduce the amount of certified individuals we have on site. The amount of summer students that we would require would still be the same.
Thank you. And seasonal workers, I believe. We're just all trying to use the right term. I got caught up in that last meeting. Any more discussion? Councillor Julich.
Just if I could be refreshed on PRA funding, is PRA funding allowed to be used for staff?
Not
Staffing?
on operational, it's all capital.
Okay.
Yeah, so if something, like, we did remove a couple items in the previous budget meeting, and I did look, and staff has moved the PRA funding, which probably, whatever is approved for PRA funding, staff will move it to. But it is not for operational. I know some municipalities that do end up having to at one point or another, but not a good habit to get into operational. The government will audit that, and then you're gonna have to answer to it. So we've always used it under capital, and what qualifies it under capital. Okay, so the report's in front of us. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I think we'll start from the top and go from the bottom to the bottom. I'm going to make a motion that we keep roads department at full staffing levels.
Okay, seconder. Councilor Noxana, discussion. Councilor Noxana.
Thank you. That would be, yeah, I'm in favor of the motion on the floor. It clearly states in here that we will actually not get the work done if we don't have full staffing levels, and our roads are absolutely something we'd like to keep in good repair.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury.
Yeah, ditto.
Okay, Ms. Torval, I do have a question, just because in the previous motion that was made in regards to a reduction in 25%, I understand that we've highlighted these in different categories. Does that, the reduction in the previous motion, affect this headline, this header? Again, my understanding is we have a department. That A department runs a few of these different headers. So my concern is if we have a reduction in an early or motion, and that's fine, does it affect us going forward? So we just heard what the motion is on the floor. I just want to make sure that it makes sense. If we're going to reduce the one ahead of it, but then try to keep full, we have the bodies to do that?
I will ask Mr. Bradley or whomever. Mr. Bradley?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, so the headers that are in your report were to highlight the tasks that are done by Public Works. The Roads Department is a part of Public Works. What you've done is reduce 25%. That's 25% across the entire department. That includes the Roads Department. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, Mayor and Council, but we did put in those 2 additional summer students for 2024.
And at this time, they're in the budget.
That is correct.
Right. You put in for 4, but I think we lowered it to 2. Correct. So yes, just want clarity. And it's not that I don't support the motion on the floor. I 100% support this motion on the floor. But I want to make sure the previous motion does not hinder us. I just want clarity. I know I heard a couple things. I just want clarity on that.
Okay, Mr. Curry?
Thank you, Ms. Torville. Mayor and Council, so what have you effectively done is just set the service level for 1 to 13, right? The staff, we're going to take that back. We're going to say this is what needs to happen. This is what council's wishes are for the service level for those items. And then looking back and making our operational changes with the bodies that we still currently have, you taking that into account for a 25% reduction in our staffing for those things. So that's why I kind of said it's very loosely, we're going to use those numbers that are there, and we're just going to move the chips around on the board with all across the Department from Public Works, including the 2 people or the 2 positions that were previously approved in the budget.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarity. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. Are we not able to post for half positions? Like, it seems like we have to have a full position or not. Like, it's, for me, like, if we start offering 0.75 positions or 0.5 positions, that's fine with me. That's, you know, I'm not deciding how many positions there are, I'm deciding service level. So I can appreciate that part of our departments go down rather than have 6 people. And I don't just, this is theoretical, right? Rather than having X number, now you can have X point. This is something we completely do. That's where I'm at. And,
Yeah, and I'll apologize. I just wanted to make, I just wanted clarity. It wasn't because, you know, I was on the let's call it losing side, but the non-winning side. It wasn't that. I just wanted to make sure as we went through this that it was clear that, you know, one section of the department we can fully do. I just want to make sure we weren't getting in to a point where all of a sudden we get back and realize, no, we can do it. I understand the 0.5, and that's up for staff to figure it out. So I'm fine setting the service levels, no issues with that from council side at all. Okay, any more discussion? The motion on the floor is to keep roads department fully staffed with seasonal workers. You second it. Okay, can I call the question? All in favor? I'm sorry, I already called it. My bad. Opposed? Motion carries. Sorry. That's why I asked.
I hit my button about the same time you were asking.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it go on. Okay.
Wasn't that big a deal. I just didn't know why we were making a motion to keep it.
Councillor Julik? Sorry, I don't know what side we.
My question was just, I don't know why we were making a motion at all.
To give direction to staff that we were not looking at reduction.
But we didn't do that on other ones that we weren't looking for a reduction.
Well, within this report, we've only started.
Well, meaning as a whole budget thing. So I'm just trying to understand. I'm
Yeah,
not trying to be difficult. I'm just
No,
like,
no.
like, so for me, I can understand, like, what I understand this meeting is for, or what we're trying to do is to reduce the budget. So if we're not wanting to reduce the budget, I didn't understand why we were making a motion, because then it does put staff into a position where we're saying, we want you to reduce this, but we don't want you to reduce that. But the original intent of all the motions that everybody's talked to me about is that we're reducing service levels.
Yeah, I think it's just clear direction back to staff after this report's been put in front of us and motions are being made on, well, some was so far. One to reduce it 25%, and then next under the head of road departments, one was to keep it as is. So I believe that, I think that's good, clear direction, so staff doesn't go away and can't remember if we were cutting 25% from roads or 25% from the previous one. So I think it's a good thing to do since it's in front of us. That's just me. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Calkin. And the motions is a tool for us to have pointed discussions. Rather than jumping around, let's go A to B, let's go A through Z. That's my intention. Next up, golf course. Somebody wants to make a motion and they want to see reductions, that's fine. If not, we make 100%. A through Z, there's no questions. We have discussions about each portion, and the decision's made.
Okay. Any more discussion in regards to this report? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
A question for staff. The golf course grounds, let's call it service levels. I was just wondering if the golf course is a net revenue generator, or do we end up subsidizing the golf course each year?
I believe there's a subsidy there. Ms. Torval.
Thank you. I don't believe it is a moneymaker, so I think we are subsidizing, if I can confirm with Mr. Curry. Been working with the numbers.
Thank you, Ms. Torville. Mayor and Council, I'm sorry I don't have the exact figures, and I'm not sure if Mr. McPhail wants to chime in, but I am under the assumption, or the recollection rather, that it is subsidized. I don't believe it's a net generating.
I think it's a subsidized net. I'll check after the meeting, but I believe it's 100 to 120,000. And that's not including your depreciation on your equipment or anything. That's just a straight cash lost.
Thank you. Follow up, Councillor Hoffman.
No, that's what I asked for.
Okay. Any more discussion in regards to the report? Councillor Norbury.
Motion that we keep golf course grounds at 100%.
Seconder. Councillor Noxana. Discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Noxana.
Am I allowed to move on to recreation?
Yep, we're done. That's the next one.
I'm going to make a motion that we reduce by 50%. Should we pick what option we want, or just reduce by 50% for the summer camp?
And if you can just fill me in, what do you mean by option?
So if you look at impacts of summer staff reduction by, it says 25%, and there's two different
Yep, I know what you're talking
reduction
about.
and an alternative, and then 50%.
I would think we pick, if we want to reduce it, because there's the options, the 25s have a double option, and then the 50 has a double option, and so on. I would, clear direction to me would be to pick, but I'll just get clarity because I don't want to go off kidder here. Ms. Torval, just in regards to the summer camp program, and a motion, has it been seconded?
No.
No, okay. I was just trying to think myself. There's two different options there under the 50% reduction that Councillor Noxana is about to put a motion on the floor. I'm assuming from staff side, you want us to pick which one, option A or option B?
Yes, that is
Thank you. So we can call the first 50% option A and the second 50% option B, if that's okay with council?
So I'm going to make a motion that we reduce the summer camp by 50%, going with option B. I have a little side thing, but I'll add it to the conversation after.
Okay, seconder? Okay, moving on.
Okay?
Okay, any more discussion in regards to the report? Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kalkal. And in regards to recreation, I'll make a motion to reduce the summer camp to 25% with the option A of reducing staff count to 3 employees.
A and B. Seconder? Okay, sorry, no seconder. Okay, any more discussion in regards to the report? Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I'm going to make a motion then that we eliminate the summer day camp.
Seconder? Councillor Julik? Discussion. I'll go first. Can't support that motion, I'm sorry. To me, we talked about it, strategic planning and all that in regards to children and youth. Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate we've tried two different motions, tried at 25%, tried the 50% and such, but yeah, I apologize, but I can't support counseling the summer camp program. To me, we need to have stuff that's accessible for all people within our community, and not everybody can afford a fee. Yeah. Councilor Norbury and then Councilor Noxana.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I'm looking at a reduction, not a complete elimination. I can't support a complete elimination of the program.
Okay. Councilor Noxana.
Thank you. I'm saying the same thing. I don't support the complete elimination of the program, but we need to significantly change how it's ran. So looking to everyone else on council, what do we want to see? Do we want to see it stay the same? Do we want to see it eliminated? Or do we want to see a reduction in the amount it's offered?
Thank you. Councilor Julik and then Councilor Hoffman.
I feel like nobody seconding the other motions means we're not sure where we're at. And I can say absolutely I don't know where I'm at. I know that seem to be completely on an opposite side of everybody else on council, so I'll be honest, I'm at a point where I don't know which way to move. The 75% reduction obviously takes it all away. And like I said before, we had a member come to our regular meeting and ask for senior help. And so again, for me, while I really don't know where I sit and where I want to vote on this, it still has to come back to me is where do we go in our community? Like, for people who don't have kids, so Councillor Hoffman referred to kids don't have a choice. There's a lot of seniors in our community who don't have a choice. There's people who can't get out of the community. Like for me, it's about looking at, we're making choices here that are going to affect a lot of people one way or the other. And when we're making the choices, we are absolutely making choices, whether it's kids or if it's seniors, if it's this or if it's that. That's why for me, it's tough making the decisions tonight. I'm not in favor of saying that staff has come over with all of these great reports. They have, but I haven't had a fulsome discussion with staff. Like, they've given us the information that we've asked for. They've said that this is what it looks like. but I haven't had the conversation with them to say, okay, you know, maybe this is, because we're asking them for numbers. People aren't numbers. Our final numbers here are an issue. And so, like, if nobody wants to cut anything, well, then let's just do the 13.5%, but none of us are comfortable with that. So for me, we sit here and people make motions, and then I'm scared to second it, because only reason I seconded this is because we have to have a conversation. Because this has, if we're doing the same as we've done for the rest of the motions, something has to be done, because we're saying we have to make a motion for each part of the department. So I still don't know how I'm going to vote. I just feel like this feels disjointed, and I feel like I'm making decisions without all the information. And I know what I can see on Mayor Calga's face is, if you don't have all the information, then ask for all the information. I don't even know what information I don't have, because I'm in the meeting and this stuff happens, and we want to do this. We look at the clock. Okay, 3 hours. I'm done talking.
So it's not about, no, and I appreciate your comments, but we have opportunities to reach out to the CAO. You know, we've had quite the discussions. I have discussions with all of council, and I'm not always right. I can give you the insight I have, but to me, meeting with the CAO and going through it, may give you the answers you need. I don't know if that helps, but I mean, that's, you know, like when you're reading these reports and need clarity, that's to me why you have to reach out to the CAO. Go ahead, follow up, Councillor Julich.
Yeah, and you know, and the thing is so you can get the information, but when you get up here to the table and everybody has a different opinion, and you get looks across the table, and you got people cross-talking and all of that stuff, then that doesn't help either. Like, I mean, so I sit here and I think I come in and I know what I want, but then you hear other pieces from other people, and then the emotions get in, and how can it not get in? Everybody's very passionate about why they want to see what they want to see.
Yeah. That's why we have a debate. Like, you may go through your guys' agendas and come up with an idea and which way you're going, but that's why the debate happens, because it's about, you know, each councillor having an opportunity to try and get other councillors to support their idea, you know, whether it's, you know, reductions or whatever. So, Councillor Hoffman and then Councillor Clickash.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I can't support the motion on the floor. I think our earlier discussion was pretty defining for me, at least. I don't want to see this program changed with such short notice. If we have hybrid or other solutions and we want to consult with the YMCA, we do that, and we can figure it out for next year. I don't see how ripping this program out is going to improve things for the YMCA this year. So, enough said.
Thank you. Councillor Clickash.
Yes, Your Worship. It says here that that they can register, the YMCA can register 12 kids. But Councillor Noxana said that there could be 24. Well, why can't we level the playing field and have the exact same amount that they have in our camp? Same numbers. If it's 24, well, then we'll have 24. If it's 12, well, then we have 12.
Okay. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I appreciate what you're saying, Councillor Clickash. The issue is that the YMCA still has to charge for their programs, whereas the taxpayers are paying for this program. I'm not in favor of completely eliminating the summer day camp, but I think that there has to be a change. And what we want that change to be is up to us sitting here, and I don't know.
Yep. Any more discussion? The motion on the floor is to stop running the summer camp. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? All councils opposed. Motion is defeated. Before I go to councillors, I understand where councillors understand the previous concerns. Again, it's very tough when you have passion and such. In the same aspect, to me, it's about setting a service. It's about setting service levels or a service that we want to add or keep. I am going to put a motion on the floor that we reduce the summer camp from 6.5 hours daily to 4 hours daily, still keeping it at 5 days a week. I'll take a seconder if there is one. Yeah, from 6.5 hours a day to 4 hours a day. Seconder, Councillor sorry. Discussion. The reason I did that, I think that opens it up. I mean, we're still doing the camp, we're still doing it 5 days a week. There's a reduction. I think if this is, like, to me, council, it was looking at something we're concerned for other organizations. To me, this still opens up full access to our children and youth, and parents as well, to be able to drop their children off or such. So I still think it's a service that we're adding. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I think it's a reasonable compromise. It's not what I want, but but I think it's reasonable. I think if this is where we can kind of split the middle, look at a cost reduction to our community. We are not providing care, so having this option for them, I think will still have an opportunity to get those kids out of the house that want to have a fun activity to go to and to be with, as well as not compete with the YMCA. So, yep, I could see it.
Thank you. Councilor Disson and Councilor Noxana.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, reducing the hours down to 4 hours, whatever they choose, a 9 to 1, 1 to 4. And then maybe we could look at, for payment, look at a sliding scale, depending on what your income is. And look at it that way. What can you afford on what you make? Maybe that would be another option to look at, is going through a sliding scale. A lot of places are doing that in this day and age. Depending on what you make, this is what you pay.
Thank you for that. Councilor Noxana.
Thank you. I'm going to support the motion on the floor because I think that it does give the YMCA a chance to run a sustainable business model here in our community. But I'd also like to discuss this again, maybe in the fall when we've gotten through budget season, and hopefully with the YMCA to discuss how we can be better supportive here in our community of them.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor is to reduce the hours of operation for the summer camp program from 6.5 hours to 4 hours daily. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Hoffman's opposed. Motion carries. I'm going to put another motion on the floor. Let staff bring forward a report in regards to the summer camp program for 2024 in regards to attendance for discussion at a P&P in September. Take a seconder. Councillor Noxana, discussion. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I'd also like to add in the out-of-school care programs that might impact the YMCA's school-age children programs. And if we're discussing it, maybe we can encompass the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess my idea of this is obviously to get just some information back from staff and how this worked in 2024 since we're doing a change. And the other thing is to have that dialogue with council and then maybe involve other groups. I know we talk about, we keep throwing out one organization, but there is other groups that this could or may affect. I'm not sure. But there is other organizations or groups that, to me, it's not just about one organization. So I think this gives us an option at a P&P to have a discussion, go from there, and then we can invite other partners, some other organizations that would like to come to the table to have that discussion. Councillor Gill?
I just wanted to say that to invite them.
Yep. Okay. Any more discussion on the motion on the floor? The motion on the floor is just for staff to provide a report with attendance and stuff from the summer camp for 2024 and at a P&P. Call the question. All in favor? Motion carried. All right. Any other discussion in regards to the report in front of us? I make a motion that Protective Services is kept at full casual summer student, or summer casual staffing, sorry. Seconder, Councilor Norbury. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mr. Earl, I do have a question. And that's at the grant funding line item now. Last year, myself and yourself attended a meeting with Mr. Zimmer. We were very concerned at that point, not only for our organizations that had lost some grant funding for casual seasonal workers, but the district also had made a comment in regards to us losing that. Going through this and reading that we have decided as a municipality that we're not going to put in the staff time to apply for these. Are there other things that we are applying for casual seasonal workers? Or is this the only one?
I believe it is the only one, but I will confirm with Ms. McKenzie. It is, yes, it is the only one.
Okay. Okay. Any more discussion from council? Okay. Okay, moving on to 4.4, 2024 tax rate discussion, continuation of the 2024 tax rate discussion initiated during the April 16, 2024 meeting. Anything else from council? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I also don't remember which way I voted in case that's the issue. We removed a $6,000 pad from the budget in our last meeting. It's not on here anymore because, well, we removed it. With the department head here, I was wondering if I could get some clarity on that decision as we're still in budget.
Okay. Sorry. Mr. Orville, that would be, my understanding, would have been the wash pad at the golf course.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bradley?
And if we can just get clarity what you're asking, Councillor Hoffman?
Without Mr. Bradley there last time, I don't think we had any clarity on what we were giving up, really. I know we had the discussion before, but for the price and if it makes enough of a difference, I know they put it green. I just, a recollection of what the pad was for and what the value of the pad was.
Okay. So I guess, Ms. Torval, I guess we're looking what the pad was for. My understanding, I think I spoke at that meeting, it was a pad that was going to be put down somewhere down at the golf course by their maintenance shop for washing of their equipment, because today they're washing it out in the mud, is my understanding. I believe I spoke at that at the meeting, but Ms. Torval?
Okay, I will defer to Mr. Bradley to confirm that, or not.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, to answer your question, currently they are washing the equipment behind the equipment shed, just on a grass patch behind. So the concrete pad was to encompass all of the debris that falls off so that we have easier cleanup, so that we don't have the debris going down the hillside.
And what sort of cost savings would that be if we had the pad in place is what it comes down to for me.
Ms. Torval?
Mr. Curry or Mr. Bradley?
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. As far as cost savings, it would be manpower, time. We'd be able to encompass everything that we do in behind there, clean it up more efficiently, and environmental stewardship, to be honest.
Thank you. So I guess, Ms. Torval, I have some questions. Not to count, just keep your light on, Councillor Hoffman. But as we move forward, we always said the budget would come back, and I'm not taking that away from council, so please don't take these comments. But to me, when we start making motions in one budget meeting, to me, this is a continuation from the April 16 meeting. We adjourned that meeting only on time. So to me, that's totally different than other motions that we've made to bring back for reconsiderations and stuff. But I also remember that was a question that was asked. So I just want to make sure that we're not going out of the line here that we're supposed to be going. And what I'm suggesting there is we've made motions, we've had debates, we've voted, and now we're bringing it back, which I'm fine with. We had that discussion. I mean, we made it very clear. We asked it and asked it and asked it during the budget. But it kind of seems milky, muddy. I don't know. Just seems weird, like, and I'm not saying you are, but like bringing it back, my apologies. But like what I'm saying is we've removed certain things out of this budget. We've kept certain things within this budget with debate, motions, and votes. The budget's still in front of us. We can make any changes we want, except for a couple items that I know I can't. Correct?
I would say yes, because it is your budget and we don't know as we're going through, depending on what council wants the budget, tax rates to be, tough decisions may have to be made.
Yep, no, and I appreciate that. I just wanted clarity, just because it's a little out of the norm. Whether we call it, muddying the water, but a little out of the norm, and that was not directed at Councillor Hoffman. Please continue, Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor, and I do appreciate your point, and that was a fun meeting the last time, so that's was one of the problems I had with that meeting is we didn't have all our directors here to clarify on those questions. And, well, let's not waste any more time. I move that we return the pad, $6,000 pad behind the golf, for the golf course to the budget.
Okay, need a seconder. Councillor Klitkash. Discussion. Councillor Hoffman.
Just looking at it for the amount that it is and what it does, the sooner the pad's in, the sooner it starts saving manpower, and the sooner its effectiveness is there. And for the amount, I guess you can say I changed my mind. I think it is worth it.
Thank you. Councillor Noxana.
Thanks. I'm not in favor of the motion on the floor. I think that we had a lengthy discussion last week. This is the 3 millionth hour of talking about how we can decrease our budget. Adding things in at this point just seems a little bit backwards.
Thank you. More discussion, Councillor Julik.
I appreciate the environmental stewardship, and what comes to mind as we discuss this is the lack of rain, and we don't have a crystal ball. But I can understand that portion of it. I also understand what Councillor Noxana is saying too, because I was like, oh man, we're gonna really be a long time. So I don't know. I'm going to vote against it because we did have the lengthy discussion, and hopefully next year we can fit it in there.
Thank you. Councillor Klitkash.
Yes, Your Worship. The equipment that's used on the greens has to be super clean. You can't be transferring weeds and stuff around on the greens. And they have to have a good place to wash so they don't pick up these weeds again from the lawn that they're trying to wash it on now. And I believe that that's money well spent.
Thank you. So, and I appreciate the comments from Councillor Noxana, because that's why I asked that question. It comes to a point where and I understand from all council. I'm not trying to take debates away, but are we going to go and hammer this all out again? That's my concern, and that's why I asked that question. To me, we debated, we made a decision. When did we just move forward on those? So I'll be honest, I didn't support the motion removing it because of, I didn't know all of it. I'm not a staff, but I remember some of the discussion that came from staff in regards to, the clean and stuff like that. But the same aspect is that's my concern with decisions that were made previously, that now we can bring them all up. We could be here for 3 more weeks to adding and removing and trying to me, we need to, eventually move forward, whether it's re-adding things, which I'm fine with the motion on the floor, or removing things. But at a point or another, that the motion that we put on the floor is going to be a final motion so that we can actually get the tax information back in front of council so they can see the actual number with all the changes we're making. I'm not sure how council feels about that. I am definitely not trying to take any debate away from council, any ideas from council. I'm definitely not trying to do that. But to me, there comes to a point that we're putting all these motions and we're debating, then we vote. And then another meeting, we bring it back up and debate it and vote. And I'm just curious, there's a motion on the floor, so I don't want to get away from that motion, but I think when if this motion passes or is defeated, that we have a discussion around the table about what council wants to do here, because to me, I would love to give clear direction to staff to bring back the right numbers so that we can have that number in front of us, so we know what we're looking at. Like, I mean, there's been some changes here and some changes already again this evening. I'd like to see what those implications look like. Councillor Julik?
I agree with you, Mayor Kakauka. I think we have to figure out where we're at. I think I had felt when we left our last meeting that we were there. We had this schedule up there. We were at 6.5%. We saw what kind of cuts we were going to have to make if we were going to keep those. If I'm understanding this right, we were at 1.1 million in a deficit prior to finding $35,000 to cut. So we're still $1 million plus.
I'll come, if I may, I'll come back to that one.
And that's my
If that's
point.
okay.
Yeah, my point being is if we're not gonna, like, we need to find a better way to do this, because we can't just, in my opinion, I understand where Councillor Hoffman's coming from. He felt that we needed to have all the people in the room to make those decisions, and we made some decisions last week without having all those players in the room, which, you know, I understand because it was a concern for me as well. So I'm ready to vote on this, but I also think we need to make sure we know, or I hope that council can come up with a plan going forward so we're not doing this back and forth.
Appreciate it. Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. Last meeting, I was attempting to be ruthless, and this is one of the things that came out of that meeting. If I recall, it was a 4-3. I have no intention of going through every item that I think or may or not. I'm simply looking at, we're not getting to 6.5 simply by cutting capital at this point. Councillor Julik has her preference. We may have to come up with however we're going to do this. And I was looking at this simply as one of the things that I recalled that we didn't have sufficient information on for, I feel, for me to make that vote. And for the amount I'm looking at, that's why I'm bringing it back. So to be clear, that's the only one in my mind to bring up. I learned a little bit more about it between last time and this time, so that new information is why that came up. I understand what you're saying, Mayor, but with the principle that we were talking about here, that the budget is ours until we seal it, for all council, I would like to give as much flexibility in that as we can, and I would suggest that the next discussion after this motion is that if we don't make any changes in a meeting, let's not try to add one little one at the end here for it. But we've already made changes, things are going back anyways, and this is a straightforward number to my mind. So I hope it's being voted on the merits as opposed to the principle, but there you have it.
Thank you. Okay, motion on the floor is to add back into the budget. Budget number was $6,000, and it was for a wash pad at the golf course. Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Dussault and Councillor Noxana opposed. Motion carries to add it back in. So again, just that conversation, and I agree. And I mean, the staff has already said this, it's our budget, and that's why we've, you know, I had those questions back there. But to me, to me, we got to get to a point that we're happy with the motions that were put in and such, and let's look at other things, and if not, then let's look at the number. Councillor Julik, you'd mentioned about 35,000 savings so far tonight. There'll be others in regards to the summer program as well and such, so I don't want to touch about the amount. All good. Okay. Anything else? Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakauka. General discussion point, what's our thoughts about utilizing reserves for our remaining capital? At this point in time, we have $292,000 in capital funds. We could, I think, operational or one-time expenses that cause a spike in taxation, not ongoing operational. What's the thoughts there?
I don't think I want thoughts. Put a motion on the floor. Councillor Norbury. Just that now we're debating the motion, not having it now and then debating it once the motion goes on the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Kakauka, that we use reserves to cover $292,000 of the proposed capital and special projects.
Okay. Reserve. Okay, need a seconder. Councillor Hoffman. Discussion, Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. I'm wondering why some of these aren't out of reserves already. Just going through the list, there's like replacing things for the fire department. If we're allowed to replace a fire truck with reserves, why can't we replace lift bags? I don't know what those are, but is there a reason why more of these don't come out of reserves? Do we typically only take a certain percentage every year? What's the reasoning?
Yeah, staff, so it's airbags and auto extrication tools, jaws of life, cutters, whatever they decide. My understanding is some reserves we have established. So vehicle replacement, which, would come with pickup trucks, light trucks, there'd be heavy equipment, which would be fire apparatus, graders and all that. So when it comes to some of these, I'm trying to think of the word to use, but materials, that's why they put it under capital or whatever, because there's not a reserve. But I'll just get confirmation from staff. Ms. Torval?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So what you're talking about tonight is taking funds from operational surplus reserves. And so when we refer to reserves, we sometimes kind of think that they're the ones that are established through bylaw. Now, those reserves that are established through bylaw are specific, just like the stabilization reserve bylaw that we have. And the other ones, we have equipment and machinery and so forth. But I will ask Mr. McPhail to contribute and provide more information.
Yeah, so just to get clarity here, so I believe the motion is for unreserved funds. So I'll go to Council Member first, and then I'll come back with a question from Council Knoxena.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. I apologize for my misuse of terminology. I don't want to take from a specific reserve. I want to take from operational surplus, if that's the terminology we're using, and we can absolutely amend that.
Okay.
I'll amend it.
We'll amend it here in a minute. So Councilor Knoxena, I was just wondering in regards to, like, on line 9, under protective services, why that wouldn't just be out of a reserve item? But I don't believe, we don't have reserves for every item listed, but that was a question for Councilor Knoxena. If we can just get clarity on that one, why it wouldn't be marked out of a reserve.
Thank you. Mr. McPhail can answer that.
So if I can answer, your reserves are set up for the original cost. So say if you've got your pumper truck, which is 20, 25 years, your replacement cost isn't your original cost anymore. Say that piece of equipment cost you $300,000. That's what you've got in reserves, and it's going to cost you $1 million to replace. As I said in previous meetings, that would be one thing I would change on your reserve structure. Is that you're not doing it to replacement cost, so that's why it's in there for this year. So the year you replace your pumper truck, you don't have to find $500,000. As well, your paving program, you put away $75 a meter, cubic meter. And the going price, I believe, or last year that I was told was $175. So you're not putting enough, there's not enough there. You have to supplement that with your Peace River agreement.
Yeah, so the one item we're talking about, if we may, staff, would be number 9. Now, it might be a different number on the other budget here, so I'm sorry. Please bear with me. No, it's still on number 9. So number 9 on the agenda tonight in regards to that, if we can just speak to why that's not coming out of a reserve. I think that was a question from the councillor. Ms. Torval?
Mr. Curry?
Thank you, Ms. Torva, Mayor and Council. A lot of the times it's just not eligible for the grant or the reserve. They're very specific in what we can and can't use those for the funds. And we don't have a dedicated reserve for ancillary equipment, such as firefighting equipment, hose, nozzles, turnout gear. Those are all operational items, and this just requires a replacement of them for this item. And it doesn't fall under anything that's eligible through the Canada Works Fund or any other grant that we had available.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Julik.
A couple of questions, if I can start with Councillor Norbury. Can you tell me where the 292 come from? I just can't find it on my paperwork. You probably have it, I just don't know what.
I added everything up from new capital
Oh, okay.
on my phone using a calculator and added the 6,000.
Okay, I'll believe that those numbers are good then. So, my question then is, we talk about operational reserves. I'm not sure, like, so when we were given the reserve numbers before, they were called reserved and unreserved, and that's how I understand it to be. So when I hear operational reserves, I'm wondering if that's reserved funding or if it's unreserved funding, or if it's a whole other pot of money that I'm not aware of.
Ms. Torval?
Yes, thank you, Council. So that's through operational surplus, and it is a reserve of a sort, but I'll have Mr. McPhail explain it further.
So what it is that basically you're accumulating, well, it's your operating surplus over the years, and you haven't designated that monies to other reserves. So it's in that, it's just in that operating reserves or accumulated surplus, interchangeable, so it's more of a term. That it's the one that you can use. It has the least restrictions, that you can use it for more things because there's no restrictions on it.
So,
Councillor Julich?
so ultimately, it would be just the unreserved funds
Yes.
in that 20 million?
Yeah.
Ms. Torval?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I did change my mind. I was not in favor of this. I think that it's kicking down the can down the road. We're hearing that we don't have enough money in our reserves to cover projects like pavement. It costs a lot more than what we have in reserves. However, hearing that this reserve fund isn't specified for anything, I am in favor in this one unprecedented time.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. We're looking at, this is a spike year. We need to look at creative ways how we can limit that spike moving forward. We are going to have to increase taxes. Excuse me, we're going to have moderate tax increases. I get that. But we looked at our graph last time. This is the year. And I believe our reserves are to help for alleviating burden to our residents. If this is a one-time thing, then that's where I'm happy with.
Thank you. Any more discussion? I was going to make a couple comments. We say one time. Ms. Torval, if you can fill me in, I believe previous council has done the same thing. So it's never a one-time thing. So I'm going to be honest, it's never, give me a second, I'll come back. Again, it's never a one-time thing here. So to me, I listen to staff, you got to be careful if you're going to do that. I mean, our budget specialist just sat there and said that earlier. I get it. We got to make hard decisions. I get that. To me, when we start taking under reserves, I get it. It's the unrestricted reserve or unreserved one, but I have issues with that because we always say it's one time. Previous council did it, probably the previous council that too. I don't know. I sat on the one that did it. And that was during COVID, pandemic. It's a little different now. Again, I talked about, and I understand. I've heard the clear direction and clear debate from council. I look at a 13.5% increase, and I'm not suggesting that. Don't get me wrong. It's not, I'm happy with it. I'm not. But, truly, when I look at that and I see what the tax rate increase would be in Tumbler Ridge, compared to what taxes are elsewhere within the region, I don't know. I have an issue taking out a reserve. Don't get me wrong, that's up to council. I won't support the motion. We always say one time, and then next year when it's 11.5% increase, we better do that again. And that's my concern. And then all of a sudden, reserves are no longer reserves. And these previous council that sat here before me, and the previous mayors that sat here before me, to me, did an amazing job by really making sure there were things set in motion for this community to have funds there for when we need them. I understand. We have to be, we're accountable to the resident. When we set tax rate, it's not staff, it's definitely council. It's our budget until we pass it. And you have to be able to, go out and explain why. I look at previous terms I was on where we did a no tax hike increase to business. Not taken very well by the residents of Tumbler Ridge. We also tried that same budget year was to do a zero increase to our residential. Wasn't supported. So here we are, we gave it to businesses, but not residential. I would have rather seen it go the other way, but one came before the other. So to me, when we started talking about taking out of reserves, it's not a huge amount, $292K if that's the number that Councilor Norbury had come up with. I didn't add mine. I just think it's a bad habit to get into. I really, really believe that. I believe that with my heart, that we say it's this year until next year is another 11% or 12 or 13% increase. Then one more time, we have to take it out. Can't do that increase to our residents. I look at inflation. We talk about it. We talked about it. Every organization that's come forward, I've heard the discussion by council. Well, yeah, but if you did the inflation rate over this and over that, it actually would be more than this. But we're not sending that back. So to me, it's definitely up for, good discussion, but those are my concerns. Is we always say one time, and not many communities are like Tumbler Ridge where they have reserves to be able to do this. There's other communities that don't have a choice, I guess. And to me, I guess that's how I look at it. To me, I want to see the reserves. Yeah, I mean, it's not that you want to build up the reserves so high that the Tumbler Ridge would never spend it. I guarantee when we have infrastructure issues, we're going to spend. We see that with our asphalt replacement. I mean, we haven't even got half a community done. All the asphalt's the same age. All the pipes are the same age. That is my concern, is when we hear, no disrespect to Councilor Norbury, sorry, this is a one time. But I believe he sat on the same council I did that we did at one there too. So that's twice that I know of. So that's my concern, is we always say one time until it happens again. And I understand we're trying to do the best for residents. Is that what you're doing? Ms. Torval, is that what?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is.
Need a motion to continue after 8 p.m. I'll make the motion to continue after 8 p.m. I'll need a seconder. Councillor Hoffman, discussion. I will not support my own motion. Again, staff's been here since 8 o'clock this morning. I understand, we got to get through this, but it's up to council. So any more discussion? Discussion on this one? Councillor Norbury, discussion on this motion? Councillor Norbury.
We have a motion on the floor, Mayor. I can appreciate that, staff being here till late. My workday started early too. I mean, we have a motion on the floor. We're just going to push off a meeting to another meeting to another meeting. I think we have to do some business. I will be in favor of continuing after 8 p.m.
Thank you. Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, going to call the question on a motion, question on the motion, which is to stay, continue the meeting after 3 hours. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Dussault, Councillor Julick, Mayor Calcker opposed, motion carries. Okay, debate. Councillor Hoffman.
Just in reaction to what you're saying, Mayor, I hear everything you say, and I do appreciate coming to a town in the shape that it was. I was already in good shape before I arrived here. I think there's something to be said for tempering these big tax swings. I'm definitely not in favor of zeroing out tax by taking out of reserves, but I believe we had a pretty good chunk of cash just growing from the reserves, and if we're taking far less than that to temper a year of tax increases, I'm actually okay as long as it's growing to do that. But I hear your point, the slippery slope, and you have a very valid idea of what you want to spend that on. But I would like to see what impact that Councillor Norbury's motion would have on the final budget with the reserve to actually have that discussion once we see it.
Thank you for that. Councillor Julick and then Councillor Noxana.
So I'm wondering, do we have to answer to the province for our reserves? Like, is any of our funding that we get when we apply for grants, do we have to say how much money we have in the bank? Does the PRA funding, is it tethered to how much money we have in our district? I understand it's the Peace River Agreement, so I'm guessing no, but are there any other funds of money? Is it like other departments that I've seen in the past that the provincial government can do clawbacks?
Yeah, so PRA doesn't affect our PRA, but Ms. Torval, in regards to grants and such.
Thank you. It depends on the grant that's being applied for. All grants that we apply and are successful in receiving, there is reporting that is involved. So yeah, there is an amount of reporting involved, and yeah.
No, so the other question I have is, so where are we with our asset management? So I'm hearing from you the concern about, and so maybe it's not asset management, I might be using the wrong term, but where are we? Like, so we're concerned, you're concerned, or we're concerned about spending our reserved and our unreserved funds. Where are we? Do we have a number of what it looks like? Would that, like, and I understand something could go unexpectedly, you know, and so that's why a reserve is nice. But I'm wondering, like, how much stuff has been done? How much stuff is old that has to be replaced? And I know that may not be a question that we answer tonight, but that's definitely a question I have moving forward for our next budget season. And maybe you guys do have the answer, so.
Yeah, I'll go to staff, but I mean, you gotta look at buildings. Like Town Hall, Public Works, Fire Hall, they're all due 4 years ago for a revamp. But Ms. Torval, would you happen to have that number?
No, Council, I'm sorry, don't have that number tonight.
Okay, so we can get that information. Councillor Knoxon and then Councillor Norbury.
Thank you. I think you make a good point that other communities don't have the reserve funds that we have. But I don't think that our residents should pay more taxes this year because we don't have the ability, or because other communities don't have the ability to smooth out a huge increase. This is a bonus for our community. We're not taking anything astronomical. We're not saying no tax increase. We're just saying smaller than 13% because we have this pot of money that we're going to take from. If it happens again in 3 or 4 years, great. That's a bonus for living in Tumbler Ridge because we have such a healthy reserve that we sit on.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kaka. And the reserve we're talking about is $37 million. We're not talking about a couple $100 in the bank. When people hear that, the comments that I get so much, when we're cutting from so much, we have all this money in the bank, why are we cutting services? Why are we cutting programs? Why are we cutting services that our residents need on a daily basis? Why are we not utilizing that? You know, I don't think we draw from well at all times, but at this point, you know, I'm not going to repeat myself, but you know, one of the comments in regards to asset management, just to give clarity to Councillor Julich, one of them, I believe we said 80%. You know, we save 80% year by year so that we don't put the burden all currently on the residents now. We have to try and fundraise a little bit when we get to the point of replacement. That's not for all asset management. That's just my personal belief on how we should manage it. You know, yes, we should save for the replacing of our roads, but at the same point in time, we still need to try and have a little bit extra that we can utilize for grants. So I'm still in favor of the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more discussion with the motion on the floor? Okay, Mr. Torval, we never did amendment. Do you need amendment just so we have the right wording?
No, that's fine. We can interpret.
Let's do amendment. Please. I just went out, sorry. I got tired, but let's do an amendment, I think, just to make sure it's worded right.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. I'll amend the motion to utilize the term operational surplus.
Seconder on the amendment, Councillor Hoffman. Sorry, I thought I seen your hand up.
There was a
And
twitch.
down.
There was a twitch.
Any
I saw it
discussion
too.
on the amendment? Call the question on the amended motion, or the amendment, sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Clickash, Mayor Kukalka opposed. Motion carries. Or amendment carries, sorry. See. Okay, any more discussion on the amended motion? Okay, going to call the question on the amended motion. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Clickash, Mayor Kukalka opposed. Motion carries. All right. Any more discussion in regards to the tax rate discussion? Capital items, all that stuff, grant needs, fee for services. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. To go back to Councillor Hoffman, I believe he asked what it would look like for our taxes. I can't remember specifically what the question he asked was, but we just kind of skimmed over it. I'd like to know what our current tax rate is. I mean, I'm thinking it's about 8.
Ms. Torval.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to defer to the finance team here, and they'll draw your attention to the screens and
Yeah, I know.
get some numbers.
Thank you, Ms. Torval. Mayor and Council, so as we've been I'm not sure if you've been noticing what I've been putting up on the screens. As you've been having discussions, I've been making cuts. or adding to the appropriate places. So currently, we're sitting about a 7.9-ish %. I'm going to say, yeah, we're a little bit of a surplus at 7.9, so 7.87, somewhere in there is what we're currently to balance the budget. That's using $292,000 from the operating surplus, as you just motioned.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. That's something I can take to our residents. That's something I can say. We worked hard, we looked at options. It's bigger than we want, but this is where we're at. So unless we want to start seriously cutting services, this is where we're at.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yep. Oh my God. Find my agenda. Question and answer period. Ms. Torval, any questions?
Okay. Okay, so I'm wondering if we can ask council to make a motion to, for the percentage at 7.87, so that we can include it?
Well, it's included now with all of our cuts. I'd like to see the information brought back to me on my agenda. I'm not sure, I can't see it all from there. I'm sorry, I'm not, I know somebody said use your phone, but I'm not doing that at a meeting. So to me, I think we just wait till a meeting and we already know we have to add one, so. Sorry, I apologize to staff, but, I mean, we'll just have it in the next meeting. Council agree to that? Councilor Julik?
Yeah, I was just hoping that we could have like the capital, all like the final stuff that we would look at to say this is what we're doing at 7.87% increase. That's
Yep,
what you're looking
that's what
for?
I'm asking
I just
for, the
wanted to be
whole-
clear, that's what I'm looking for, yeah.
Yep. We just wait for that to come back from staff. Okay, any questions or questions from online, Ms. Torval?
No, there aren't any.
Okay, thank you. Take adjournment. Councilor Norbury,
At the April 22nd, 2024 budget meeting of council be adjourned.
seconder. Councilor Dussault, all in favor? Carried.